And so here we go. Welcome to this live event. And everything seems all right. Hope the stream will hold and be cool today. And so here we go, my friends. Welcome to this live show. This is the Shortwave radio show on YouTube Live, and we are here every 2 weeks on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2000 hours UTC. And of course, we talk about shortwave radio. And today it's going to be a very interesting show, because today we will be looking at my radios. Now, I got tons of them here, and we'll be looking at each radio one by one. And I mean, really, we're going to take each radio. So I started looking, and you know what? I don't think we'll have time to do all the radios today. So it might actually also be the next show where we're going to take a look at the radio. So we're going to start with the top row and slowly go through each. And, you know, some have interesting little stories behind them. Some are just cheap junk that I bought somewhere because, you know, if I see a radio and it's inexpensive, I kind of just have to buy the radio. So hope you enjoyed today's show as usual, and hello everybody. So hey everyone in the chat room. We have in the IRC chat PLF, hello there. Nice to have you on board. SG1 East Nebraska says 47 Fahrenheit snowless. Really sunny right now. Scotty Tier 6 from Toronto, hello there. The Vaults, hello there. And thanks for the link. I will check it out, because Google is not reliable when you have mass sending of emails. So I'll be checking that out. And the YouTube chat, Danny Shortwave and Radio DX, cheers, hello there, from Yonkers, New York. Here it's snowy, little light snow, and it's about 32 Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius. Bristol Channel Radio from Bristol, UK, hello there. Carol T, hello there, he says got the notification. Steve P, hello there in Australia. Brett Wayne, pretty cool to see you here. Southeast Texas Radio DXing, hello there. Jerry, Mad Radio DXer. Bobby Burgess, good afternoon. Edvaldo Lemes from Brazil, hello there. What do we have? David Arden, hello from Georgia. John Ritson, 1990 Sunbird. Redelva 65. Nick Amendot, hello there. Homebrew Vidman from Eastern Pennsylvania. Really nice to have you here. And if I've missed anybody, just give us a shout. Nice to have everybody here. As usual, as we'll go through radio by radio, the little radios that I got here that are, you know, interesting to see. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun watching, and you'll have fun watching, you know, all these little radios coming up. And, you know, the cheap ones, the good ones, the whatever ones. And I think it's going to be a cool day. And CQDX, the VE3 UVA. Grandly, hello there. Nice to have you here. Pretty cool. And what else do we have? SG2 East Nebraska says 9475. WTWW, Ted Randall talking to someone in the radio industry. Really interesting. Yeah, he's got these really interesting little tidbits here and there. I always stumble, you know, by accident to that show. I never, like, you know, decide that I listen to the QSO radio show or anything like that. And I just kind of tuned through it one day, and oh, he's talking about a radio. It's cool. So, and it's, you know what I like about Ted Randall also, and it's like Alan Wiener also. It's a little bit like what I do on YouTube, but on the radio. It's like you just go with the flow and the calls and the people that are there. So it's kind of cool, and I think it's going to be really fun. David in Barcelona, hello there. Thomas Brogan, hello. Tom Kramer, new listener to the show. Cool. We want those. We want those. Interesting. Interesting question. Bobby has a question for all of us. How often do we get new radios? So, that's a good question. A KC135R, M6XMN in Manchester. Hello there. And, well, I think for a lot of us, unless we really decide for something, it's mostly, like Mad Radio DXer says a little bit, at random. I do not decide that, in 3 months I'll get a radio. Usually it happens in one of several ways. It will happen because I have enough, I have a little bit of cash and I feel like I want to have something new. And I'll go through radios on eBay or, in stores like Radio World in Toronto, and I'll purchase something that I feel that I want to have. And that's random, really random. It's like one day it's like, I've got some extra cash here. Why not buy a radio? Also, the other randomness in radio buying for me is I go somewhere where there's some radios for sale and I'm like, oh, interesting. I don't have this one, or this one is really cheap. Why not buy it? And I think for a lot of us, it's really impulse buying, like Carol T says. I buy and that's it. Even my ICOM, even an expensive radio, I always wanted to have that ICOM ICR 8500. It was kind of my dream radio for a long time, and but I didn't have the money to buy it. And when you talk about impulse buying, you get your shiny new credit card and it's like, and not only you get your shiny new credit card, but you got the Radio World in Toronto that's got it on sale for like $300 less than usual. So it's like both together is okay, let's buy. So basically, yeah. TOT, hello there, nice to have you on board. Theo says, I buy when Gilles does a review and says to buy it. That's interesting. So Mike Fontaine, hello there, from Wesley Chapel, Florida. Nice to have you here. Yeah, Carol, shiny new card, shiny new radio. Man, it's not always a good idea, but who knows? It's I think it all depends on, for all of us, Grandly says, I get a new radio every 30 years. That's hanging on to your radios. The beer today is the Fin du Monde that I usually have. It's just that I put it in a glass. But it's the usual Fin du Monde that is in a little ice bucket here. So that's pretty much what I got here. So, going to a ham fest, stuff like that. And Scotty Tier 6 says he was talking to a guy from ICOM at a ham fest in St. Catharines. He said this morning, and they said that the R8600 would be arriving in 2 months. So, okay, that's interesting. And that's pretty cool. Pretty cool, So, open a PayPal charge account, and now I'm getting into trouble. Buying too many radios? And yeah, exactly. That's the thing. When I do the live shows where I tune the bands, it's okay because I can just leave the radio on, to Brother Stare, and you guys have to listen to Brother Stare while I go get a beer. But when it's live and I'm in front of the camera, it's a different story. So yeah, it should be sponsored by Fin du Monde. Hello there, Neil Toombs from South UK, M0CJM. CJM. And yeah, I'll have to ask, like Carol says, I'll have to ask for a limit increase to get my ICOM ICR 8600. Brother Stairs drives me to drink, says NDK2. So welcome everybody, and let's start tuning around. Tuning around, yeah. Let's start getting these radios out. And if you've got questions for every specific radio that I get out of here, just ask. So we're going to start with this one right here, which is one of my, I don't know, I've got this one. It's kind of a cute one because it's very thin. So we're going to start with this. And basically, it's the Degen DE15. So here's the radio. It's a nice, very thin radio, as you see here. So the DE15, and here's the back. So you can see. It's an interesting little radio because this is a DSP. So this one has the famous silicon integrated chip in it. And basically, this is, I bought it for the fact that it was very unique in its style. It's very thin, and it looked cool. So it's, of course, derived from pretty much every radio that has the silicon integrated 4734 DSP chip, which means it covers the essential international broadcast bands. It also has AM and FM, and long wave, of course. And of course, you know, it is very interesting and unusual for such a radio. It doesn't have the greatest sound because it is, you know, the thinness means that the speaker in here isn't of the best quality possible. I don't remember exactly how much I paid for this, but I think it's something like around $50. Of course, it has, you can charge the batteries if you put rechargeable AAA batteries through the USB port. It's an overall interesting little radio. The story behind this is really only that I bought this because it looked kind of different of everything else that I owned, basically. And as for reception, it is a, you know, an okay performer because this, you know, the chip, this silicon integrated chip, is a full radio inside a chip. So they all perform quite well in general when they have that chip in it. And you can scan through the channels. What's missing? Of course, obviously, when you look at it, what's missing is a keypad. It would be interesting to have a keypad, because or else you have to, you know, up, down, and stuff like that. Good question. David Arden says, what's the sound through the earphones? The earbuds, the sound is great. It's stereo FM on the FM band. And if you put, you know, I usually use my smartphone earbuds, my Samsung Galaxy S7 earbuds on every radio. It gives a really decent sound. Actually, even on FM, it's actually an amazing sound with you know, a lot of richness in the frequency range. So it's a cute little radio, you know, with little display here. And I don't know, I've owned this for I don't know, something like 3 years, maybe 3 or 4 years. I would have to go back and watch when I did the review of it on my channel. By the way, because every radio you see here all have a review on my channel, every single one. And, you know, it's one of those kind of cute little things that I like to use from time to time. You know, fits super well in a shirt pocket. So you just go somewhere and just drop it in your shirt pocket, and you've got a shortwave radio with you. And because it's thin, it's cool for that also. And you know, that's a cool little design. You know, it's mostly because of the design, I got to say, that I bought this radio than anything else. You know, when I buy a radio, I have to say I will, of course, from time to time check out before buying if there are some reviews already online, and sometimes it will favor one model over another. But sometimes, you know, I don't always I would say I don't always take the reviews like for 100% cash, because depending on who we are, we can rant on something about a radio that somebody else will say, well, I don't really care about that feature or not. And I got to say that it's cool little thing, and really enjoy it. As for external antenna, Carol, can you hook up external antenna? It's no, you'll have to clip it to the little antenna here. It's not very long. That's maybe one of the drawbacks, I would say, for shortwave. Very short antenna, as you see here. So hooking up a little something that will extend it a little more is better, but you'll have to clip the antenna to the telescopic, because there's no input for any external antennas on this little radio. And but it's definitely a nice little thing, And I gotta say, it's one of the radios I take out from time to time just for the fun of it. So it's pretty cool. Hey there, William Helms. Nice to have you on board. So it's a general, pretty much every band from the 90-meter band up to 13 meters. And that antenna is good enough for Brother Stare. So if you're a big Brother Stare fan, great radio for that. And it's also, Brother Stare is a fantastic catch when you have easy tuning mode on radios. You're sure to have at least 5 or 6 frequencies of Brother Stare in the mix. So Djin DE15. I don't know if it's still available on eBay, but bought it mostly for the design of it, and mostly, and it performs okay for what it is. So I'll put it aside because I'll clean them up, all of them, when I actually. Let's go with the obvious, like let's take a big one here, like this one here. So of course this is one that you've seen many videos. It's 2 years old now. I do believe it's 2 years old now. The trusty old Texan PL680. This is a great little radio. One of the best of Texan. It's a cool performer. And I bought this because I wanted to have a new good radio. Something I knew it would perform well. And that wasn't too expensive. I had a little cash flow at that time, so it was like, let's buy this. If I remember well, I think I had a tax refund or something like that. And I thought, okay, it's time to get a radio. I didn't, when I bought this, I had not bought a more expensive radio for a little while, and I thought, well, this is going to be cool. Resembles and uses pretty much the casing of the PL600 when you look at it. They kind of recycled the casing, and it's a great all-around radio. It has the best sync detection that I've seen in any radios. It's really an amazing little radio. It's a full coverage from long wave, 150 kilohertz all the way up to 29999 with tuning, keypad, everything. This is a cool radio. Comes with a nice carrying case. It comes with external antenna. It comes with all sorts of goodies. And basically, it's really something really nice. And if you're looking for a good performer overall, Texan PL680 is a radio to get. The only drawback, my version has, actually mine is very unique on that. Most people get the version that has, it's either right on frequency, or it will be off frequency 1 or 2 kilohertz. You could, there are a few of these. There are a few of these that are off frequencies. This one was actually on frequency, and that actually makes me wonder what's happened. It was on frequency, and it actually then someday I turned it on and it was like, oh, okay, it's like a kilohertz. I'd say about 1.5 kilohertz off, which is, by the way, if you look at the specs, within the margin of error that they say is normal. So, of course, you could return it and try to get another one. I don't care really because of the simple fact that I know that it's like that. And you know what? It doesn't change the fact that it still receives well. And on sideband, it's actually on frequency. So really nice radio, little dent in the BFO. I love that. So you know you're smack in the middle of the BFO. That's something that I love with this radio. Overall, really nice. I did have the encoder block at some point, and actually fast load it sometimes in the chat room. Opened it and put some sewing machine oil in it and put it back, and it's actually working okay now. So great radio overall. This is one of the best portables out there. And you know, it compares well to the PL660 and 600. Good sound quality, FM through the earbuds, and it's really, really, really good. Nice radio overall. So if you're looking for something that you don't know what to buy, it's one of my recommendations, really, because of how good quality this thing is as a receiver from Texan, of course. So the PL680 from Texan, 2 years old, about 2 years old. It was my main summer radio for the first year when I did the expeditions. It is surprising how well it can actually accept a long wire antenna. I could put my sloper on this and doesn't overload really. It's an amazing radio for that also. And the sync detector is just so incredible. So great radio here. And one of the overall cool performers. Sorry here. And hope that if you're looking for something cool, this is the radio to get. Texan PL680. Okay, so we're already at radio number 2. It's not too bad. And you are watching the Shortwave show from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And of course, got it on eBay. Most of these radios I get on eBay most of the time. So it's really a question of you know, buying what you want. And it is a nice radio. The PL, if you got a PL, you know, like David in Barcelona is talking about how he likes the 680. If he didn't already have the PL600 and PL660, you know, in most reviews, and one of the reviews that I saw was on the shortwavelistening.com website, where they were talking about the PL660 versus PL680. And what they would say is that if you got a 660, they weren't really saying, you know, that the 680 is good enough or better, that you would need to buy the 680. But it's really, really, you know, great radio, great overall performer. And yep, the 680 does have an antenna jack, like PLF says. If you want, but you know, I always clip my on the telescopic. I almost never use the antenna jacks on any of my radios. Sorry, guys. So I mostly clip an antenna on the telescopic most of the time, and it's a great all-around performer. I can tell you that. Okay, moving on to the next radio, and of course, if I miss out on a question, you can ask it again. Sometimes I might not see your question. Let's go to that little red portable here. So this is one of those radios that I don't know why Ethon or Grundig does something with these. It puts like a rubber coating on it. And what happens to the rubber coating is that with the years, it gets like a gooey finish, and it's actually right now a gooey finish. So I need to find a way to clean that. So this is the Mini 300 World Band receiver. This I got at a Canadian Tires here in Canada. And the reason I got it is I did see it like many times at the Canadian Tires here in Canada. But it was always like $70, and I always thought, every time I would see it, I was like, that's not worth $70. And one day, it was on sale at $29.99, and I looked at it and it said, okay, it's cute, and $29.99 is like the price I want to pay. So this comes from a Canadian Tire store. Nice little radio, kind of cute in the colors. And I believe they have a variety of colors on this one. This is an analog radio with a frequency counter. What does that mean? That means that the radio itself is analog. It's a good old analog radio. And the frequency display is actually just a frequency counter showing you what frequency you're tuned to. So it's a little more approximate. It's not as precise as a digital PLL radio. And basically, that means that, it's sometimes a little off on the display, but still, it tunes well. It has the tuning wheel. It goes pretty well. You've got the bands. It covers the regular shortwave bands and AM, FM, stereo, once again, stereo sound, and pretty good sound also through the earbuds. And it's interesting. It's interesting to use it, basically, and basically, one of those little cheap portables that I got for like $29, and I was like, okay. And it's actually surprisingly sensitive. It happened very often. At the first year or two that I had it, I'd put it in my jacket pocket when I'd go out sometimes. And, I'd look like really dorky because I'd like put the antenna like this, and it was in my pocket. But, I could receive, I remember listening to like Radio Romania while going to the grocery store, stuff like that, just, taking a walk. And it was kind of cool. And it's a nice little radio. It's just that weird rubbery finish that's not really cool, basically. But it's, an overall shortwave bands pretty much as pretty much the shortwave bands from, I believe, 60 meters all the way up to the 13-meter band. And of course, it's cut. It's really just the shortwave bands. It's not a general coverage or anything. But it's an okay performer, and it's a cool little radio just to own. And it's one of those things that if you don't want to have an expensive radio, it's kind of the cool little radio to get and to have in your home in case you get a, maybe there's electricity, goes out or anything, and at least you've got the nice little, cool little things. But at first when it was $70, that was a ripoff. Canadian Tires here in Canada, which is a big retail chain, you have to know when to buy because they usually sell. The price is usually too high in Canadian Tires. You have to wait for that sale before it. They do drift, by the way. They do drift. William has a point here. The Mini 300 drifts. It's an analog radio, so it does drift. That means you have to retune from time to time because of the drifting. But it's okay. It's not. I would not buy this. I would not say buy this to DX Shortwave. It's far from a DX machine. It's more of a novelty item. It was red, and I believe it is available in yellow and blue and different colors. And I just thought it'd look cute. And but I haven't used this in a while for tuning, so maybe it's while I'm taking them out, maybe it's time to redo some videos with these old radios. I've had this. I had this for many years. So they do drift a lot. That's for sure. One of the things, questions that I got on the IRC. Technically, the antenna jack disconnects the telescopic, yes. Um, so normally it would be better to use, technically it's supposed to be better to use the antenna jack than the telescopic. Most of the time I don't see much of a difference, honestly, on these portables. And for the medium wave, like Vault says, internal ferret is never disconnected. So it's, you can't, it'd be cool if one of those had, when you plug in the antenna and the antenna jack, the connector, that it would disconnect the internal ferret so you can DX medium wave better. But I don't know. There's not a lot of portables that do this. I'm not even aware of one portable that disconnects the internal ferret when you plug in an antenna in it. PLF, do you plan to do a DXpedition in the near future? Well, Canada being a very cold country, I probably will not do a DXpedition before. Maybe, if Mother Nature helps, as early as April. If winter just lingers on, probably not before the month of May. Pretty much every DXpeditions that I've done every year start in the month of May. In the month of May, it's that month where one day you'll get like a 25 degrees Celsius. It's like, okay, today's warm and it's time to DXpedition. And I'll have also a lot of fun because I'm going to buy myself a new bike, because I'm a big biker, and I'm going to have a lot of fun. So I think it's going to be cool to DXpedition also. That's for sure. And it's kind of a cool little radio, basically the Mini 300, and that's what I like, about that radio. So yeah, you have to use the trick. You have to do that little trick. But the DGen D1103, if you use the little trick that you can find, it will be interesting. Theo, the noise on the bands where I live, it's pretty noisy. But yet, you know what? If I compare myself, and we did that once, we started tuning around the bands, and we actually compared our noise floor, everybody, in the tuning, and I'm noisy, but I'm still able to DX. But really, if I want to have, and it really shows, if you look at my DXpedition videos, I mean, boy, going to that Perry Island location, or even just going in the middle of a big park here, noise suddenly is so low because you're far from the everybody's houses and the electronics and everything. It's a huge difference just immediately. It's amazingly huge difference. That's why when somebody buys a portable receiver and tells me, I can't hear anything, or I hear Brother Stare only, well, then what I have to say about that is go outside. Go far away from home. So it could be a big park. Of course, always stay safe depending on where you live. You can go to a big park. You can go, I go to Perry Island because it's far from homes and it's pretty isolated next to the river here. And it usually is an amazing difference. A radio that receives mostly noise will give you Brother Stare, but you go in a park, noise floor is down, and you suddenly hear all these signals. And you know what? One of the first things you notice when you go to a very low noise location is that no shortwave is not dead. There's tons of signals. What makes it dead for a lot of people is that our noise floor is so high that it washes out the weak signals underneath. But when I go to Perry Island, man, all these signals that I barely hear over here actually are easy to listen to, and to, if I had the same noise floor here than Perry Island, I would be in radio heaven, basically. That's the thing here. So it's pretty amazing. And but try to get somebody try to get somebody that will um, basically know nothing about shortwave and gets his first radio. And when you have a radio and you don't know nothing about radio, you don't really understand that there's interference coming from all the cheap electronics of today, the switching power supplies, which are horrible at noise output. And imagine that person that just saw on the cover, world receiver, and you can listen to the world, and all you hear is that, annoying preacher talking about Jesus all the time, and that the world is just 6,000 years old. If I continue talking like that, maybe Sunday Stare is going to give me a little rant like he does with Glenn Hauser. So you have to you have to really think that there's a lot of noise, and noise is the most horrible thing in shortwave. So and that's unfortunate. So yeah, I get messages from people that bought a radio because they've seen my channel, and they're like, well, I saw that you got all of these stations. I just turned on mine and I got 2 stations. And then you're like, well, there's too much noise. And I understand the feel is, yeah, it'd be cool to listen to the world on your living room table. Unfortunately, today it's pretty much not going to happen. Yeah, in the 80s, I remember in the 80s we could take a portable receiver, put it on the kitchen table, put the telescopic out, and we had the world on our radios in the 80s and the 70s. Today, we have noise, and to get the world, you'll have to maybe go outside, do a little de-expedition that I like to do. Really is amazing how it changes everything. Okay, let's of course talk about the little cheap portable that is a hell of an amazing little radio, and the famous Texan R9012 receiver. This is so cool of a little radio. This is the kind of radio that I think everybody should have, just because what it does it well, and it does it well for below $20. If I remember well, I think I paid 18 Canadian dollars, which is what, 14, 15 US, and I think somebody told me they bought one for like $12 US on eBay. Texan R9012. It's a good old analog radio like before, but it has several things in its favor. First of all, sensitivity is pretty surprising on this radio. I mean, it's one of those cheap radios you buy for below $20, and you're gonna tell yourself, well, I ain't losing a lot of money, and it's probably crappy. Then you get it, and you turn it on, and you're like, God, this is not crappy. It actually receives something. I've bought many sub $20 receivers, but this beats all the sub $20 receivers, all of them. It is a cool little compact. It is good looking, that little charcoal colored finish. It has the major international shortwave bands, as you see here, that you switch from the band switch in the bottom. It also has FM and medium wave. The FM band is, I believe, extended, because it has in the FM, it starts the FM band at 74 megahertz here. So it's really an extended FM band. It has surprisingly good sound with that little speaker. And it drifts, but it doesn't drift that much. If I compare the drift of this with the drift of this drifts probably 4 or 5 times more than this does. And it's more expensive. So this, the Texan R9012, you're looking for a cheap, bags, just, a little Christmas stocking stuffer or anything, or a little cheap gift to give your tech friend, or your, that person that loves radios. It's cheap, but it does a job. It does the job that it's meant to do, listening to the shortwave bands. That's for sure. So it is very, very interesting, and it's a cool little portable. Very small, very compact, easy to bring along, and it's cool because if you go on a trip somewhere, or you're going on vacation, or you're going in another country, you're afraid that you get stolen or something. This is like a cheap little radio that is if you get it stolen, you can buy another one because it doesn't cost a lot of money. So it's an amazing little performer, and that's my for below $20, it's the best that you can get, except for maybe a little SDR stuff. But we're not talking about that right now. We're talking with a multi-band radio. So Theo, to talk about why are shortwave cut into bands like 1 to 7, it's simply because of the way the circuit is designed. These receivers will often have specifically tuned frequency ranges, and because they are inexpensive, they can't be general coverage. That means tuned from one end to the other. By spacing out each shortwave band, it actually creates more space in the display, and it's easier to tune through the different frequencies. This is small, and it doesn't have a digital readout. It's not a digital radio. It's totally analog. So basically, by putting bands, at least you can space them out as much as you can on each radio, on the dial. Make it easier to tune a little bit. And of course, the switches to each little tuned circuit inside the radio that has that frequency range, basically. And it would not be feasible to really, you'd have to, it's not impossible, but it would be like, okay, if you wanted to do just general coverage, you'd have to jam-pack the frequency so much on the display that it would be almost impossible to tune around. So it's mostly that. You just switch one band, it brings in that little circuit that is tuned to that frequency range specifically, and that's what you're tuning. So it's like there's 7 little circuit, in the general radio circuit, in here there's a tuned circuit, and that's which brings the tuning circuits for the general frequencies you're tuning through these shortwave bands. And like I said, it would be impossible. It would be too jam-packed to have general coverage if you want. And another question that I often have is why is it that they stop at a certain range of frequencies? That also goes a lot with the price that you pay. Cheap radios, you'll have a smaller range of frequencies that the tune circuit in the receiver can tune around. The more you pay, the more you will have circuitry to give you a bigger frequency range. And of course, digital readouts will make it easier to have what's called a general coverage. General coverage is receivers that are, nonstop from one frequency range to another. So a general coverage is generally what we call a receiver that will tune, 1.8 to 30 megahertz or something like that. It's a general coverage receiver. And like SG3, his Nebraska says, Texan does make pretty good radios in general. You are watching the Shortwave show from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. My name is Gilles, and we are here every 2 weeks on Saturdays. Today, what are we doing? We're looking at my radio collection, radio by radio. And of course, if you have questions, if I've missed a question, just post it again. I'm trying to keep up with the chat, but when we talk about stuff like this, I'm concentrated on the specifics of the radio, and it's a little more difficult to follow the chat at the same time. And that's also another thing, like Mad Radio the Extra says. Cheap radios don't have single sideband in general. You have to pay a minimum because it's, basically it adds an extra circuit in the electronics. Of course, you got to pay for that extra circuit. And usually, not always, but usually a single sideband radio will have a finer tuning, because it's going to be, you need to have a fine tuning in order to listen to a single sideband signal. But you can do one thing that I did when I was young was, most of these radios have a 455 kilohertz intermediate frequency. That means if you tune your receiver off a certain point, sometimes it creates a carrier in the other radio. And I remember having some success decoding some single sideband signals by doing that. But it's tedious, and you have to know a little bit what you're doing and try to really tune the two receivers correctly. So hey Raphael, ever dropped a radio and did it keep working? I probably dropped at least half of my radios at least once. And yes, I do not have a radio that dropped to the floor and stopped working. I can't think of a radio I dropped that stopped working. Now, that said, you gotta be careful because it can break, of course. But I dropped. I'm a little hard with my radios and my electronics. I'm the kind of guy that isn't totally careful. So basically, it's I'm a little hard on every radio that I got. Okay, let's check it out here. Of course, this is what I would consider being my best shortwave portable, and it's this Grundig G5, or what also is called the Eaton E5. So here's the with the display on. Can't see really well, but there we go. I was actually listening to you see here 1850. I was listening to 160 meter band hams the other day. So Grundig G5 is also known as the Eaton E5. Great receiver. Unfortunately, it's one of those that has that rubberized finish. So mine looks like beat and battered. This I've been holding on for a long time. I'd say it's at least 10 years old, and maybe more. I don't remember exactly when I bought it. I know one thing is I wanted to have it because it looked cool and it looked like a great radio, and it is actually a great radio. The best portable, like I always say, for me, of all the portables that I've owned, this is the best portable I've ever used. It's very, very good. It's a PLL tuned circuit, long wave, medium wave, FM, and general coverage, shortwave up to 29,999 kilohertz, single sideband, and everything. Even has, in that there's not a lot of radios that have that, but even has a little line out here, so you can actually drop the audio into, for example, a computer to decode digital mode, stuff like that, or to record. It is really an amazing receiver. The story behind this is very simple. I actually, this was sold at Radio Shack. If I'm not mistaken, if it's Radio Shack, or it's maybe at the source when they first bought Radio Shack here in Canada. The radio at the beginning, if I remember well, was like $169 or something like that. Now, that I found it a little steep, and I would, because they at Radio Shack they had sales on pretty much everything from time to time. I always, um, I will always, take a look because from time to time I know that one day I'll go through and it's going to be on sale. And one day I went to Radio Shack and I believe it was $79 if I remember well. So when I saw it on sale at $79, I said, okay, that's the right price for me. I took it home, and I got to say, loved it. And I mean, if I had just, if somebody would tell me, okay, you got to get rid of all of that, and I'm talking about shortwave portables. I'm not talking about scanner radios or anything. If we talk about just shortwave portables, if I had to choose one in all of the radios that I got here, I gotta say, I would. Texan PL680 is pretty good, but I would probably choose the Grundig G5 over the Texan PL680. So it's pretty. It's pretty. Pretty good. I'm amazed at this performance. The FM, and actually, I know that for FM DXing, this is one of the favorite receivers of many FM DXers. It has one of the best FM tuned circuits I've ever seen. I mean, for DXing, and the fact that it doesn't overload easily on strong FM signals makes it amazing radio for DXing FM bands. So I can tell you that. Grundig G5, also known as the Ethon E5, same radio. Grundig G5 or Ethon E5 are the same radio. So it's pretty cool. Shortwave guest. Can shortwave radios be tuned out frequencies to get other frequencies, maybe the government? Well, thing is, the government doesn't use any special frequencies. The government is all across the frequency spectrum. So if you've got, if you look at the VHF, UHF stuff, any scanner radio tunes frequencies the government use. The problem is the government often uses encryption. So the problem is not that we can't receive the government because our radios are not, one of the things that I hear a lot is people tell me, they take out these frequencies so we can't listen to the government. And my reply to that is always, no, that's not true. I've got here two receivers. My R8500 goes from 100 kilohertz all the way up to 2 gigahertz. No frequency ranges are removed from it. My trusty old R20 here, this goes all the way up to 3.3 gigahertz. It has no gaps. I can listen to any frequency in there. So there's no thing as, can you change the frequency of a radio to listen to the government? Because it simply, every radio receives the frequency ranges that the governments use. The way they block it is more into using encryption. Here in Canada, the RCMP, for example, is encrypted. I've never heard the RCMP in the clear, ever. So they use encryption. But a lot of government agencies that don't use encryption, you'll hear there's no such thing as, they block these frequencies because they don't want us to listen to government stuff. It doesn't work like that. It's not something that, yes, some countries do restrict some frequency ranges. Okay? It's not here in Canada, there's no restriction on frequencies. But there's no such thing. And as for can you modify a radio to receive out of its frequency range? Yeah, if you're good at electronics, you would be able to, tune around, play around with the electronics in the radio and make it tune outside of its receiver circuits. But you know what? It's not something that is. Usually, we don't really do that. And but yeah, you could, tune around, play around with the electronics and say, hey, I'm going to tune out of the frequency ranges. It usually does. But the gaps in the frequency ranges are not gaps because they don't want us to listen. The gaps that we have on most radios are simply because the radios are cheap, and for the price you pay, you get that frequency range. And that's mostly it. And yes, in Canada, Radio Shack stores became the source. At first, it was the source by Circuit City, and after the source by Circuit City, now it's the source only. So basically, but here Radio Shack, but Southern Illinois and here in Canada, Radio Shacks became the source by Circuit City. All of them were bought by the source by Circuit City, and actually, for a long time, the stores, the source by Circuit City, looked like Radio Shacks because they had the same stores. Even now, here my local, the source store that I go to, still has that little area with electronic parts that are electronic parts from Archer, Realistic, and all of these brands that were under the Radio Shack branding. So here the source is really derived from Radio Shack. Not like in the US. In the US, Circuit City and Radio Shack always were apart. Here, they were the same and only thing because they were bought by the source. Talking about batteries also, because a lot of you were talking about the batteries. I got a lot of radios, so I must have a lot of batteries. The way that I actually work with all of these radios is that I usually buy like these big, sometimes you go to this to a store and you find finally that they have these 48 packs of Duracell for a reasonable price. What I'll do is I'll buy one big pack, like 48 pack of Duracells. So some of these will have Duracells. Some of these will have alkalines. I've got also often buy some Panasonics also, but like just here, Duracell. But I often use also some Panasonic alkalines. And the most used of these receivers, the ones that I used all the time, these will have rechargeable batteries. So if I look here in my Grundig G5, I use it a lot. So if you guys just look, I've got, let me just turn to see the brands here, but here we go. These are Amazon Basics rechargeable AA batteries. So all the radios that I use very often all have rechargeable batteries. Those that I use a little less will have most of the time Duracells. And the reason I will favor Duracells is because of all the alkaline batteries, those that have the least possibility of leaking out are Duracells. If you buy cheap batteries and they leak out, you've bought cheap batteries and they do leak. Cheap batteries almost always leak with time. Duracells, it could. Okay, Duracells are not 100%, but they could most of the time still hold and not leak. And what I will do very often is go through the radios and from time to time I'll check what batteries are inside. And if I buy, for example, a new pack of 48 alkalines from Duracell, for example, sometimes I'll go through the radios, and if I see that the batteries inside, especially because Duracell, what's cool is most batteries have a date on them, expiry date if you want. So I look at the expiry date, and if I see that it's getting close, I'll switch them with new, fresh alkalines. And what I'll do is I'll use these older alkalines that most of the time are still very good to power other things that I need to use every day. But I would say that in here, if in all of these radios, I'm 60% rechargeables and 40% alkalines. and that's pretty much what I do most of the time. I use a lot of the batteries today. Most of the time, if I buy new batteries, I'll check to make sure that they are the type that don't discharge too fast, because we had before rechargeable batteries that after a month they were always dead. Now what I do is I buy nickel metal hydride and IMH batteries that are rated to keep their charge. So like Sony had not Sony, Sanyo had Eneloop, but Amazon Basics are some. Also, I've bought on eBay many of these. These are Enelong. It's a Chinese branded Enelong. These are the equivalent of the Sanyo Eneloop. These keep their charge for many months. So if you don't use a battery for a long time, what's going to happen is that at least you will still be able to use your devices because it's still going to have enough charge. But I never, if I go to do a de-expedition, I will always put fresh rechargeables, and I will always bring a pack of alkalines because you don't want to be somewhere with no batteries. And that's mostly it. You really don't want to be somewhere with no batteries. So for those that lost Radio Shacks, I miss the Radio Shack from the 80s that had everything. You needed to have a quarter watt resistor of 680 ohms. Even if they were really expensive there compared to my electronics store, if you really need it fast, you could go there and you could buy that. It was just amazing for that. And I miss that a lot. I miss the Radio Shack stores from the 80s. So basically, what else do we have? Just gonna see if I see anything missing here. So Scotty says, I got from eBay these adapter sleeves that convert AAA to AA and so on. So yeah, these are actually useful. I have some sleeves like that for some radios because, for example, in the bigger radios, these use D cells or C cells. And I don't buy D cells or C cells anymore. So what I do is I do the same thing that you do, Scotty. I have these sleeves that I pop in a AA battery in, and it actually adapts the battery to a D size, for example. Of course, you don't have as much power as a D cell because D batteries have much more power in them. But, you don't have to buy multiple size batteries. It all fits and it works great. It works great. Yeah, G6 Aviator is also a nice one. And there's the Buzz Aldrin edition, which is nice and pretty cool. Pretty cool. Raphael, a question. Have you been in a situation where you had to mix new and used batteries? They say not to do this. I never do it because there's a very simple reason why you really don't need to do that. It's very important not to mix old and new batteries for a very simple reason. The difference in power of each battery means that the weaker batteries will tend to try to recharge themselves. Now, in rechargeable batteries, it doesn't matter because the batteries are rechargeable and it's okay. But on alkaline batteries, you are going to damage some batteries by doing that. And they could actually leak, really leak. So that's one thing that can happen. They can eat up also. And another thing is, you know what? When a battery starts to drain down, it has less power. A phenomenon that happens in that battery also is it increases in resistance. That means if you pop two batteries, one is halfway in its power, the other one is full power. Not only, first of all, will it try to charge that half charged battery, which is not a good idea in an alkaline, but the increased resistance in that battery will mean that that full battery will not be able to deliver what you want in the full power that it could give out. So, these are all reasons not to mix. Never mix old and new. Not as, because of course, another thing that they often say is don't mix different brands of batteries. That I have less of a problem with. If they're totally new, sometimes it happens that I'll mix, for example, Duracells and Panasonic alkalines. I don't do it very often. When I do it, it's because I don't have the choice, and I have to do it unless because I don't have any other batteries around. The reason why the brands of batteries you don't mix also is a little bit like the same reason as mixing the worn out batteries and the new batteries together. Every brand of battery doesn't have the same specs. So, for example, they even though they say alkaline, if you buy Panasonic alkaline and a Duracell alkaline, I can bet you one thing: the Duracell alkaline has more power. It lasts longer because it has more power packed in it than the alkaline from Panasonic. And that's why you also pay a steeper price. It is, of course, for the brand, but also because, in many, many years of use of batteries, you got to say Duracells are pretty much on the top of the ones that last the longest. So if you mix, Panasonic alkaline and Duracell alkaline, because the specifications are not totally the same, it can create a problem, and it might damage one battery. But that is less of a problem, I would say, than really putting an old battery and a new battery together. I don't like Energizer. I never liked. You know what? I have the only Energizer I got here is the AAAs in my wireless microphone. But Energizers I've never liked. Oh man, hello there, hi Mapper in Moscow. Yeah, it's like mixing beer and wine. Ew. I don't think I want to do this. So, don't mix old and new batteries because it can damage the batteries, and it can, yeah, I'm a bunny racist. For some reason, I never liked Energizers. And I always thought Duracell were better than Energizers. I don't know, maybe I should test them. Maybe that could be a fun project for the channel. Because, radio, electronics, kind of close. Maybe I could do some kind of test. And test Energizers versus Duracell versus Panasonic. And yeah, but the thing is, David, what I'm like, because a lot of these, when you start mixing the batteries, is that the weaker battery will actually force the other battery to discharge or do something that is not the usual discharge cycle. So they're not all equal. They're very different, and the discharge rate and the capacity of each battery is different. So yeah, you can mix one after the other iMapper, but not beer and wine together. Theo, do you stay up late at night listening to HF or mostly daytime? Sometimes I do stay up late at night. Mostly, well, it depends. I work, since I'm self-employed, of course, one of the things that I do is probably get up in the morning a little later than most people because I, have the possibility to do it. So, yeah, it might happen one night that, I feel like I want to listen to radio and I'll listen to late at night. But I haven't done, when I started listening to Shortwave in the 80s, I would do all-nighters. I'd say, okay, Friday night, for example, I had school on Fridays, and then I would say, hey, Friday night, or in the summer vacation times, I'd say, okay, tonight I'm listening to shortwave until I just can't, and I have to go to sleep. And it very often happened that, especially in the summertime, I DX through, 2, 3, 4 a.m. local time. A few times I did a all-nighter. A few times I did an all-nighter. But what I would mostly do is either decide, okay, I'm going to listen to shortwave up to 3 a.m. And I would also, from time to time, say, okay, this, Friday or this Saturday, I'm getting up at 4 in the morning, and I'm going to DX early in the morning before going to school, for example. That I did very, very often. I remember back then I would go to school. I'd leave home around 8 a.m. for school. I would wake up at 4 in the morning and DX shortwave, and especially because I wanted to DX those stations that I could not hear in the daytime. And basically, I would get up and do a few reception reports for stations that I hear only in the morning, early in the morning. I remember one in particular that I listened to in the 80s a lot early in the morning was the RFO in Tahiti. There was a French relay of which is Radio France Outre-mer, which is the overseas service of the French radio. And they were in Tahiti in the Pacific Ocean. And I could listen to them in the 40-meter band. I remember the frequency was in the 40-meter band. And they were coming in, around 4 or 5 a.m. Here. Because if I remember well, they would shut down around 6 a.m. local time here. So that was one of my occasions. And I would, listen to the shortwave stations back then, early in the morning. I tend to do it less these days. But you know what? Maybe that's something. It would be probably interesting to do a series of videos of, I'd probably call them the night owl shortwave videos and tune around. Yes, Neil Toombs, there is an archive of all the Radio Shack catalogs from the, I believe, the 50s up to the late 90s, early 2000s, online. They're all available. Every catalog that they've ever done. I went to that archive. I looked at some of the older catalogs. I was, as a kid, I always wanted to have the Radio Shack catalog because it was like there were so many goodies in the catalog to look at. I mean, every page had something that looked so cool. And of course, being a kid and you don't have any money, the only thing you could do is just look at it, But I remember looking at stuff and it's like, oh, I'd like to have that, or this looks so cool, or, it was just amazing. And oh man, they're all online, and when you watch them, it brings back a lot of memories. A lot of memories. Can tell you that. Okay, what else do we have here? RFO, Radio France Outre-mer, had many shortwave relays. There were a few relays of Radio France Outre-mer on shortwave in the 80s. But these relays were changed afterwards for FM, local FM retransmissions. But they were on shortwave back in the 80s. There was Tahiti. There was one out of French Guiana, South America. There was one or two that I remember coming out of Africa. So you could listen to that. It was cool. But of course, when they started building this FM relay, it was kind of cool to listen to that. The link, by the way, for the Radio Shack catalogs is www.radioshackcatalogs.com. If you go there, you'll have all the Radio Shack catalogs that ever existed on since the 80s or something. Oh, this is cool. Carol is listening to the graveyard. He's working the graveyard shift and allowed to listen to his PL365. So he gets and you've got very little noise where you work too. That's cool. But that means you might be able to have some really nice stuff in there. Now let's talk about it since you guys are looking at that, obviously. The the boombox that's here, because a lot of you are saying, hey, that nice boombox here. This is a radio that I bought for two reasons. First, when I saw that it had shortwave, I was like, oh, this is so cool. And the second is, I just thought this is so cool. It looks like my good old boombox I had in the 80s. And I just fell in love with it. And especially with the price tag of $35 US. Yeah, $35 US. Okay. It is a AM/FM shortwave band receiver. It has cassette. It has SD card. You put the MP3s on your SD card and you shove the SD card in the player here. It has a USB, so you could put your MP3s in a USB key and just put the USB key here. And basically, it's a real nice boombox. I bought it because it just looked cool. And I don't regret because I just love it. What's the drawback here? It's okay sensitive on shortwave, but it's not super sensitive. Okay, that's one of the first thing. It's not the best sensitive or sensitivity of a radio, but it's okay. It does the job and does receive shortwave and medium wave. Okay, receives FM, decently. It records. You can record a shortwave signal on a cassette tape if you want. And you cannot record on the SD card or the USB at all. What is the drawback? I don't know why. Maybe, I'm still wondering if it's really that. But this radio's output on the speakers is mono. It is not stereo. Not even with the FM radio. It's mono. Inside here, they plug these speakers in a way that it's like everything's mono. Even the cassette tape read head, has only one little slide in it. So you can see it's not a stereo head for reading stereo cassettes. But still, you know what? For what it is and for $35 US, I love this thing. It's amazingly cool. And I do not regret at all, using this. Buying this, and I find it really, really nice. So PLF, this thing was released 2 or 3 years ago. It's not a very old radio. Maybe I've had this for maybe 3 years or something like that. So it is amazing. Exactly, Vaults. That's what amazes me is at $35 US. I'm just amazed that at $35 US you actually were able to make this. And I mean, how can you make this for $35? It's just, I know it's, made in China and everything, but, and the sound is actually, even though it's mono, pretty decent. I actually listened to some MP3s that I have on this SD card or even the cassette tapes. I took out this cassette that is in here I have a box of cassette tapes that I did in the 80s and early 90s. And I still have all of these cassettes. And sometimes I'll pop out a cassette from the box and put it in here and listen to it, see what I actually recorded on these tapes back then. And I gotta say, for $35 US, come on, you can't have, you really can't have much more. It's just an amazing little thing, and it uses some D batteries, so it's really heavy when you're actually full of batteries, like it is right now. And I've been able to listen to China radio, Radio Romania. Of course, if a signal is strong enough to be easily listenable on a portable, you'll be able to receive shortwave. They've updated this. This one is the J21U, I believe. Yeah, J21U. I believe they have a J22U, and if not, I'm not mistaken, even a J23U. It's like an updated version of this radio. So it's amazing. Amazing when you think about it. So I'm going to check that out. Yeah, that's true. You know what? I need to check out a few because I know, Vaults, that some of the cassettes that I have in my old box are cassettes that I believe have shortwave broadcasts from the late 80s. And if I can find those, what I want to do, because I believe I've got full broadcasts of one cassette that I'm actually searching. I have one cassette has 2 full broadcasts of Radio Nacional do Brasil in English from the 80s. And man, I'm searching for that cassette because if I can find it, I will actually post a video with the full 1-hour broadcast from Radio Nacional do Brasil from the 80s. That's going to be cool to listen to. I have a few DX party lines, if I remember well, from HCJB. I've got some broadcasts from, I believe, one cassette with Radio Berlin International. So I need to really check out, I've got like 200 tapes in that box. So it probably is somewhere in there. So I need to really, really check that out and make these recordings for sure. And, also digitize the recordings, because cassette tapes, okay, I can play them now, but, in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, maybe playing cassettes will be difficult. Maybe we won't be able to find any, 4-track players anymore. So, pretty amazing. Hello there, Lord Windermere. Cyndi Lauper, 62 years old. Yeah, that makes you feel old, huh? When you think about it. It's funny because Cyndi Lauper, I saw her on TV the other day. And the first thing that I when I looked and they announced, oh, here's Cyndi Lauper, and it's like, the first thing that came in my head is like, wow, she looks like an old lady. And I have this image of course, Cyndi Lauper from that She's So Unusual album from 1984 or something, that looks like a young, vibrant woman. And now it's like, before he actually said her name, I was like, who's that old woman? Oh, Cyndi Lauper, that's the old woman on TV. Which also means I'm getting an old guy. But I'm amazed at that little radio. I got to say, this is really, really a cool boombox. And it looks cool. I'm sorry, but it looks cool. I have the impression of having my boombox that I had when I was like 15 or 16 years old. And I would bring the boombox to the park. And I remember playing frisbee and listening to some cassettes in the park with some of my friends. So it looks cool. It just looks cool. I love this thing. It's an amazing little radio. Very happy to have this in my collection. QFX boombox. Oh, I must have some too, Lord Windermere. I'm pretty sure I've got a Radio St. Helena. A Radio St. Helena broadcast that I have somewhere. So I need to check that out. So where's the cat? He's sleeping in the living room right now, Tia. So it's pretty amazing. And yeah, I still have a cassette deck right here. You don't see it in the frame here, but I've got a a good old hi-fi system here with 100 watts per channel speakers and a turntable. And I do have a double cassette deck in there. I made so many cassettes back in the old days. Oh man, it's pretty amazing when you think about it. And remember, you know, gets you into these this. Yeah, the one that I have here, my hi-fi system is 100 watts per channel. I can tell you, I can bring the house down. It's pretty amazing when you pump up the volume on that. So okay, yeah, we are the world. Man, these are good old days. Good old days. And so you're watching from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, the Shortwave show every 2 weeks on Saturdays. We're here at 2000 hours UTC. That's 3 p.m. Eastern time. And yeah, it was. Of course, there was average, but you know, they're often talking about peak-to-peak stuff. So, but I gotta say, it is one thing that I remember out of that hi-fi system is playing around with it, and I had the two speaker wires touching my leg, and I did not notice, and because there was, I believe there was a problem or something, and I pumped up the volume. And I remember getting a hell of a jolt in the leg from the two speaker wires that were still in the amplifier. And I was like, oh my God, this really kicks a lot of power. Man. Yeah, it's RMS. Exactly. But it's still more powerful than pretty much everything that is sold today, which have a lot less gel wattage rating. Yeah, 2000 watts. Okay, let's continue on with the radios now. Oh, that's cool. Bobby Beretta, nice to have you on board. And 16-year-old daughter into shortwave. That's cool. That's cool. That's nice. Anybody got dumped because you decided to listen to shortwave instead of going on a date? Oh, that would be bad. I decided, you know, why are you single for such a long time? Well, every time I'm on a date, I always decide that I want to listen to shortwave, and I don't know. It's like, it doesn't work. This is amazing. Oh, man, this is hard to... Okay, there we go. Second beer now. And we'll continue with our looking at... Nice audience today. We're reaching the 90 live people watching live. That's pretty cool. One of the best audience of all. I believe one show I've reached 101 at one point. So pretty cool. Well, we'll be doing 40 different shows with radios. Okay, here we go. Texan PL 380. Really nice, really cool. Hilton says, not listening to shortwave, but watching Gilles on a Saturday evening could get you dumped. Well, you know, you bring her in and you sit down in front of that, you know, 60-inch TV, and she's expecting a movie, and what comes out is my face and the shortwave radios. So, Texan PL 380, an amazing little radio. Doesn't have single sideband. Does not have single sideband, but does have an amazing reception. It is really, really cool. And it is also one of those radios that has the famous silicon integrated 4734 DSP radio chip. It is nice because it has a few things that are cool. You can actually change the bandwidth. You have selectable bandwidth for the AM signal from 6, 4, 3, 2, and 1 kilohertz. And it has one of the features that I always thought was gimmicky at first, and then I started using it and I fell in love with it. ETM, easy tuning mode. This is around 40 bucks. And if you're looking for something, you have about 40 bucks to spend, and you want a good radio that receives well, this is a radio to get. It's cool because it has a digital display, it has a keypad, and it is a great performer. Easy tuning mode is fun because it's going to fetch for you stations automatically, so you can use the ETM mode to find stations. So for the $40 price, this is one of the great radios to get. Really, really nice, and with the keypad and everything. Has good sound overall. I've done a lot of videos with this one. It's pretty sensitive. It's one of the really, really cool ones to have. But even the tiny speaker on the 380 actually sounds not too bad compared to many other radios. But of course, as usual, you know what? Most radios that are small in size, of course, using earphones or headphones or earbuds or whatever actually improves the sound a million times for pretty much every different little portable receiver you'll have. It beats that little speaker, of course. When you have small speakers in a small enclosure like this, very difficult to really make something really good in sound. But amazing performer. I would say this is my favorite for a $40 radio. Something to get that is cool, that works well. And you know what? That little selectivity that, here, I'm just going to turn it on. So you've got the frequency. And if I press here, you'll see that it says 3, 2, 1. That's the bandwidth. So this is 6 kilohertz large, 4 kilohertz large, 3, 2, and 1 kilohertz. Now, 2 and 1 is not very usable, but I'd say that in a area where signals are packed together, that's one of its force. It's really cool because you can just say, okay, I'm going to use the 4 kilohertz wide bandwidth instead of 6, so that I can, eliminate that interference from that station that's right next to it. So very sensitive, great receiver. The Texan PL380 is really cool. It's not the same thing. PLF has a good question, which is ETM or ATS, and that is not the same thing, okay? ATS is the automatic tuning of stations, and it's made only for AM or FM. ATS is an AM or FM only thing, and it is mostly to try to quickly fill out your memory channels with the AM FM stations you hear. ETM is easy tuning mode, and this is a different thing. This is meant for every band, and it's also meant for mostly for the shortwave bands. It's really cool. It goes through the international shortwave bands specifically in search of all the stations that it gets, and it will put them in a temporary memory channel. So it's not a permanent memory channel that you have it in. It's really a temporary memory channel, and you start tuning around and listen to the different stations. So basically, easy tuning mode, you'll want to do this from time to time. Say you're listening to something, you'll be able to, just find all the signals that are easy to receive at this point. You go through, you listen to something. After half an hour, it's like, okay, what else is there on the bands? Well, you can just press that easy tuning mode button again and wait for it to scan through. And it is an amazingly cool feature that I like a lot. And, the 310 ET that Southeast Texas Radio DX is talking about, pretty much the same. I'd say it probably has the same, it has the same chip and everything. So probably are performing pretty much the same. Each radio is pretty much equal. No SSB on the PL380. At $40, there's really not much that has SSB, I can tell you that. But really, really cool. And it's a nice radio. But of course, if you need a single sideband, it's not a radio to get. But if you're looking for a cool, broadcast listening receiver, it works well. And it is not, by the way, it's not blocked into specific bands. It's more of a general coverage if you want. That means that, yeah, you can go through the international broadcast bands, but you can tune in between. So if you want to tune 8652, you can tune 8652 for sure. What else do we have here? Jacob Wagner, nice to have you on board, says, thanks for cool videos. How old is the blue FM radio on your back? My parents had it for a long time since I was a child. I'm 20. Best regards from Balearic Islands, EA6AMH. Nice to have you on board, Jacob. The blue radio is probably this one that you're talking here. So this is a free play AM FM radio. Okay, let's just take it out without breaking anything. So this is a very, very nice and unique radio in what it is, and that's why I wanted to have it. So this does not have shortwave, but there's a shortwave version of something that looks exactly like this also. And I would have loved to have the shortwave version, but I've never had a chance. So I have this blue one, which is nice also for a very unique reason also. I love radios that you can see through. And it's just so cool. And look at this, okay? You see this big thing here. This is like a metal spring, if you want. And what that thing does is that this radio has a crank. And when you crank, it actually makes the wheels inside turn. So it makes the wheels inside turn. And these wheels actually are powering the radio. So it gives you about 45 turns, which is about an hour's radio listening. So instead of charging a battery, you are actually cranking up that metal spring, and it's releasing its energy and slowly giving its power to the radio. So, it's pretty cool. It's hard to see here, but you can see maybe that it's turning inside. So it's a pretty amazing little thing here. And that's one of the coolness of this thing. It's AM FM, and it's also solar powered. If you put it in the full sunlight, this radio actually works very well. A full day in sunlight will give you AM FM radio listening. It's amazingly good, amazingly cool. You could, of course, power it up with a little adapter here. And so, cool overall radio. This thing is at least, let me think about it. I got this, I was still working at my old job. So that means, this radio is about 18 years old right now. Because I remember I was still working at my old job before I started working, being self-employed. So, the phone is ringing. So basically, about 18 years old. So that means if you're 20 now, I got this, you were 2 years old. And it's a cool little radio. And one thing that's really, really nice. Yeah, it's really a mechanical battery. It's just amazing. And what's cool also, and it's something that I liked. This is Free Play, and Free Play, for those that don't know that company made these radios in Africa. So these radios often were built in African countries. But what's also cool is that for one radio that you bought, they were a little expensive. I remember, I think it was $79 for this. But when you bought one here in North America, you were actually buying one that was given to an African listener. So every time one was sold, somebody in Africa would get one free because you kind of paid for two, basically, instead of just one. And I thought the idea was nice. I don't know how many people got radios, but personally, I thought it was a good idea. And if somebody somewhere in Africa has one of those and is enjoying it because I bought one, well, not only do I have a cool radio, it makes me happy at the same time. So the free play, and there's a version that has shortwave on it also, and it's so cool. This is so cool. Sometimes I'd listen to the radio, FM or AM radio with this, just because of the coolness of watching that little spring and the different gears inside turning, because you just crank the radio. And by the way, the crank of this radio is rated at like something like 100,000 cranks before it might start to break down. So it's like you're really gonna crank it a hell of a lot before it breaks down. Pretty cool, actually. Very, very, very cool thing. And yeah, but fast load, I tend to hope that these programs actually work. And I hope some people had, free play was a nice, it was a company that was pretty cool. It's like this thing was, I really hope that somebody somewhere did get these radios. Bye, Neil Toombs. Nice to have you on board as usual. And I tend to think that for the most part, a lot of people are honest enough to do it. And who cares? I got a really cool radio, and yeah, that radio is like oh, that's interesting. Your 310 ET has ATS on shortwave. That's interesting. Because I've only seen ATS, because I've seen ETM on shortwave, but ATS I've seen only on, usually works only on AM or FM. That's interesting. It is also, yeah, that's true. The this free play blue crank radio is really the perfect emergency radio, because it doesn't, it works really nice as soon as you got some sunshine. It works great. So you just put it in the sun, you got your radio, and you got a real strong, what's also amazing is that you got a real strong audio coming out of it. It's not like, we got this weak audio from the solar panel giving power. It's really an amazing sound that you get through it. And, for, it's I would believe it's an amazing emergency radio for sure. And of course, there's another one that I've seen that is exactly the same, except it was black, and that one had the shortwave bands on it, which I would have loved because it had the shortwave. So, the spring is broken. That's sad. KC3ELE, nice to have you here. I've had this one for 18 years, about 18 years. And I would say that I've cranked it maybe at least 400 or 500 times since I had it. And it works perfectly well. I've used it a lot with the sun power also. I remember putting this radio on a shelf next to a window because I wanted to have it working when it was sunny in the afternoon, because I just found it so cool. Danny, shortwave radio DX. I have an old I can't get it because it's way, way, way too far and all the stuff I have here. But I have an old Pioneer, an old Pioneer AM/FM radio with 8-track cassette on it. So yeah, they've made more, by the way, Carol. But like I was saying, so I've got a Pioneer AM/FM stereo from the 70s with 8-track cassettes, and I actually listened to my first Rolling Stones album on that Pioneer on an 8-track. I believe in '79 or something like that. I was really young, and I remember popping that. I had 2 cassettes that I had listening. One was the Rolling Stones 8-track cassette that had, "Miss You" and all of that on it. And there was Manfred Mann's Herd Band, "Solar Fire," that I listened to a gazillion times when I was about 11 or 12 on 8 tracks. Boy, it brings back a lot of memories. Can tell you that. So it's only the 8 tracks for audio only. The other thing I have is VHS. For video, it's VHS. I still got 2 old VHS here that I think should work. If I popped in a cassette, they probably work, but they haven't worked for years. I'd have to check them out. A Panasonic and a very old Zenith from 1984. And but the Pioneer was 8-track audio, and I remember it was misaligned a little bit, and I remember that when the music was very, very weak, at some point, when the volume of some songs were down, I could hear another track playing backwards on in the earbud, in the earphones, and which I always thought was funny, and I always thought that's so weird that 4-track thing that like you'd hear it like clack, and then you'd see that it go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and then go back to 1. Boy, that was something. We never had a Betamax here. What I have here, the oldest VHS that I got, is a Zenith VHS tape recorder that my dad bought when I think it's in 1984. And I remember he paid $1,000 for it back then. I still remember the price. It was like $1,000. And I still have it. It still works. And it was also very modern because all of my friends that had VHS had the tape that you put on the top and you push the top down. That one had front loading like today's VHS players. It was really a front loading. You just push the cassette into that hole, and it was more modern than the ones that my friends had. And it still works. Still works. Yeah, when we start talking about cassettes and 8 tracks, it starts really to show what age we are. That's for sure. That is for sure. I can tell you that. So let's continue on, and I think we'll need several shows to go through my radios. So, okay, let's take this one. This one is not going to be very long. This is the Cade KK 9905. It's a very cheap. This was in my time where I had way too much little cheap radios that I would buy. So basically, I'd buy these little cheap radios that are basically analog receivers with frequency counters for the frequency here, and the shortwave bands and everything. These are the cheap stuff. This is junk radio. This is probably I would call a junk radio. Overloads. FM stations, by the way, where I live, have such a powerful signal that a receiver that is not good enough will often have a breakthrough of FM signals everywhere. So this is one of them. This is one of the cheap radios that basically, I almost never take them out because basically they just are too bad. So here, I'm going to take out the rechargeables that's in here because they've probably been in there for like years without being recharged. That's why the display is blank, and I'm going to charge them later on. So, these are some of the cheap. That was in my. I had a period of time where I wanted to just, okay, that's a radio, that's $20. Let's get it and see what it is. And these are technically extremely cheap portables. So stay away from the Cade KK 9905. And all written in Chinese, by the way, on it. So this, bad radios. Okay. Talking about bad radios, and this one has a little story on it. So this is a radio that's a Pulsar. Pulsar was a brand that you often see at the local Canadian Tire stores in Canada here. It's this story behind this one is that in about this I bought somewhere in 1995 or around there. It's the first time, okay, and the story behind this Pulsar is it's the first time that I had seen a PLL synthesized AM/FM shortwave radio that actually was below $100. Now, a lot of you are going to say, well, there's tons of radios with, that are like the PL380 at $40. Yeah, but in 1995, in the late 80s, early 90s, a PLL synthesized receiver cost several $100. There were no cheap radios back then. They were expensive. That was technology that was very expensive. And basically, this I came across at a Canadian Tire store, and it was $69.99. And I remember looking at it and saying, really? A AM/FM shortwave PLL synthesized receiver for $69.99. So I was too curious, and I bought it. And I got to say one thing. This thing is a crappy radio. It was very, it's not very sensitive. It barely picks up the strong signals. Typically, to get something on this, I actually put, like a piece of wire on it. Because it just with the telescopic antenna, it was really so bad on shortwave. And this is amazingly crappy. And the story, like I said, is I was just curious that this was one of the first sub $100 radios that I seen with digital display and PLL readout. And actually, I was surprised because I believe it's the Passport to World Band radio of 1996, 97, around there, they actually had a review of this. And if it had like 1 star out of 5 or something, this was this was crappy. So, it's still part of my collection. I should fire it up and try to listen to shortwave someday with it. Let's see if it has. Okay, old Panasonic alkalines. Maybe it'd be safe to remove them. I've probably been there for a long time. Cheap radio. Okay, next radio. A very, very good performer. We're now in another category again. The famous Degen DE1103. Also known as the Kato KK1103, something like that, or KA1103, sorry. So this is known as the Degen DE1103 or the Kato KA1103. It's a long wave, medium wave, short wave, and full coverage, short wave, general coverage basically. It is an amazing performer, has great reception, has a very unique tuning style. one of those radios with like the keypad is a row of buttons instead of being a keypad. So it takes getting used to. But another very, very unique thing about this radio is that when you tune around, you actually had this LCD analog, because it looked like an analog radio here. And when you tune, you see that this line goes down, and this is an LCD line. It's an LCD line. It's not a needle like on an analog radio. So they actually, and that is a very unique radio for that. It's taking the LCD display and faking an analog display. And you know what? It's kind of interesting to see it, but I always thought, instead of taking all of this space to do that, why didn't the hell you just put a really big frequency and time clock instead of using that to do a fake analog dial? But, it's, in another sense, I like it because it is it's unique in its style of tuning. It's a very affordable receiver. This was one of the most affordable, very good shortwave radios. It has single sideband, so it's really nice. It's really a full shortwave radio. It has all the capabilities. A little drawback that I would have is it overloads easily on a long wire. So that is maybe the negative side of it. But this is an amazing... this is one of the amazing little receivers, and it is great, and it is a PLS synthesized receiver, so this does not drift or anything, and you can listen to amateur radio operators, utility signals, or your favorite shortwave broadcasts. It's very sensitive, just with the telescopic antenna, and of course, good sound through the speaker, good sound, even better, of course, through the earphones. The Degen DE1103, once again also known as the Kato KA1103. If you find one of these for cheap, get it. You won't regret it. It's a good shortwave performer, and I bought this because it had good performance. It had good performance. It had in the reviews that I'd seen, and I remember, I think it barely cost me 65 or 70 Canadian dollars. So that's even more surprising, because when you think of a 65 to $70 radio that has single sideband and everything that performs so well, you gotta have it, because it's just like, wow, this is so cool for the price. And yeah, I don't tune a lot above 20 megahertz most of the time on these portables, but maybe I should check that out. Are they kind of a little deaf? Is it a known fact, Volts, that they are deaf above 20 megahertz? I've not seen anybody talk negatively about that, but like I say, it's it's on portables, I rarely go above 20. I will sometimes, but not all the time. Muffled Ors through Twitter says defines the Degen DE1103. Just check it out here. Let's go to Twitter. And by the way, welcome to... he says the Degen DE1103, he finds it to be more sensitive than the Texan PL660. My go-to radio when on the move. Oh, cool. You know what? I don't remember. I've never, just thinking about it, I'm not sure I've ever compared. Did I ever compare the Degen DE1103 with my Texan PL680? That could be maybe a really cool thing to do. Comparing both. I don't remember comparing them ever. And that's a great idea. That is a great idea. I'll check that out. So yeah, Vault says there's even a few fixes for that. There's also a tuning noise due to not great shielding inside. Well, one thing that I did notice while you're talking about that is that if you put your hand in front of the LCD display, you will notice an increased noise on the receiver circuit. That I remember noticing that on this radio. Wow, that's a great idea. You know what? I'm going to put those together. I'm going to put them together because it's going to make me remember that I have to compare the Texan PL680 and the Degen together. Because I don't remember ever testing them together. You know, I remember testing the PL680 against the G5, against a few radios. I don't remember testing them against each other. Huh, cool. So, pretty cool. Well, thank you, Brett Wayne. Yeah, it is a cool show, you know, showing all the radios and talking about the radios. Man, time flies. Already 2 hours into the show, man. I'm not going very fast. I think next show is also going to be another one. We'll continue with the radios. Okay, let's continue. And, okay, let's take this one for a quick run. So, this is a Degen DE321. Degen DE321, very small ultralight portable. This is a DSP analog. It's very weird. This has the Silicon Integrated 4734 chip, DSP chip, but with an analog readout, which I always found kind of weird because, I mean, you know, it's like a digital tuning with analog readout. So what does it have in quality or not? First of all, this is what we call it ultralight. For those that don't know, there's actually a group of shortwave listeners that want and do DXing with what's called ultralights. Ultralights are specific types of radio that are smaller than a certain size. And if you just Google ultralight receivers, you'll see the list of radios that are in the ultralight category. This one is one of the ultralights. It's quite sensitive. Why? Because it has that famous radio chip, which is the Silicon Integrated DSP chip that has a full radio in it. And it's very weird because you're tuning in with an analog dial, but because it's a DSP chip, it doesn't drift. So once you tune, you tune. So there's no drifting really. It's not as sensitive. The negative side, it's not as sensitive as it should be because it does use a good chip, so it should be sensitive, but it's not as sensitive as it should be. And the sound quality is kind of a little crappy. It is better through the earbuds, yes, but still a little crappy. But, you know, one of those little radios that was kind of cheap, like 20, 25 bucks, and I wanted to try them. So this is the Degen DE321 portable, and in a very unique category of ultralights. And it's very, 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 very weird. So, okay. What else to check for? First of all, what about here? Andre Kosik, the ATS909X is a little deaf. From what I've seen, it suffers from deafness. It's not as sensitive. But, you know, it's an all or nothing. I see people that love it and find it really cool. But some people say it's deaf. And you know what? It is compared to, I do have a Sangean ATS909. Let me just try to find it here. Sorry, guys. Just going to check it out. Yeah, it's right there in the back. So we'll go through that one. It's going to show you guys what. This is the previous first version of. So here's Radio Shack DX398. This is also known as the Sangean ATS909. This is the original Sangean ATS909 receiver. Here in North America, we have it branded as the DX398, which is the same exact radio. This is really a Sangean radio. It's just that it's in Radio Shack stores, it was branded as the DX398. And I believe that the 909X suffers from pretty much the same thing as this one. It's a little deaf. It's not as sensitive as it could be for a radio, especially at the price that this thing went for back then, which was like $300. Now, when you plug in a long wire, it actually works amazingly well. So I gotta say, yeah, with the telescopic, a little deaf, but plug a long wire on this thing and it is pretty amazing. It works really well, very, very good. With the long wire, it really comes alive. It is nice because the tuning, when you tune here, you're actually tuning like 40 hertz at a time instead of tuning in a slow mode, instead of tuning like 1 kilohertz at a time like other receivers. And that's also why it doesn't have a BFO. You tune USB signals with this, and you have USB, LSB. It has a very unique way of doing pages where you can actually enter alphanumeric stuff. So, you could tune around and say, oh, this is Radio Moscow, and write Radio Moscow in the display if you wanted, because you have tags that you can actually add. Upper lower sideband, full coverage from long wave up to 29,999 kilohertz with single sideband. The 909X, I believe, is a minor update to this, except for the box. The box is so much more modern. But the more I've read and the more I've seen, the more I see that it's exactly the same inside with very minor changes to it. And I would not be surprised that the 909X is a little bit deaf, like this one. But once again, like I say, if you actually put a long wire on this, it actually becomes a great radio. It's just deaf when you're on the portable. It's mostly that. So, that's pretty much what I have to say here. About this. But you know what? It's still, even though with the deafness that it has on telescopic, it's still one of those that is one of my favorites in my shortwave collection. I enjoyed this one. I've used it a lot. It's actually, I had to bring it back because this is on my this is my bedside radio. One defect that it does have with time, and this one did have that, the speaker actually breaks down. That it's like the coil breaks down or something, and it sounds crappy at some point. It's a known issue with this radio that the speaker eventually gives out, and you'll have to change it. I don't mind because this one has a broken speaker, but I also since it's my bedtime radio, I use earbuds, so I don't really care. But if I would want to bring this and do something with it, I really would need to change the speaker in here because it is a gone speaker right now, and it needs to be replaced. And it's a known issue. If you Google a bad speaker and the Radio Shack DX398 or Sangean ATS 909, you'll see that there's tons and tons of people that all have a bad speaker on this radio. So, nice radio, but if you want to buy something today, instead of buying a Sangean ATS 909X, I'd probably go more with a Texan PL 660 or 680, which has better performance and is going to cost you less money than buying this receiver. I just want to, for a few seconds, because I talked about it yesterday, in the chat room, I will actually give you guys my PayPal email address. If you guys ever want to do a little donation, please do so. It helps me a lot in continuing these live shows. I have a certain number of donators that are monthly, and it's really cool, and it really helps me a lot in continuing what I do here, because I just love doing this. And I know a lot of you love what I do, so I'll just put the PayPal email in the chat for all of you out there. And if anyone wants to do a little something, it's would be very much appreciated. I'm especially calling out here to maybe, first-time donators, people that have not donated at all and that are watching my shows since, a few years that I'm doing this. Why not think about it? I think it's not always to the same person to give a little something. And, my promise to you is that I will continue making these live shows, try to do my best. If I have enough donations, buying equipment, radios and stuff to do reviews and all of that. So, thank you everybody that already has donated. And if you can do a little something, very much appreciated. Helps a lot. And thank you to everybody that are supporting my shows. There are some great people there. I try not to mention the name of people that donate, because somebody told me once, well, why don't you talk or give the name of the people that donate? I don't want to create that zone where some people seem to give and some people don't give, and that's why I never mention the names of the people that actually donate to me, because I don't want to have anybody think also that I might favor somebody over another. One thing that I have to always say is that I'm always very fair and square. I mean, I want to give the same output to a non-donator and a donator, but it helps a lot. And in these times of very crappy AdSense monetization, it does help me with all the time that I put in, and it's really something that I do take a tremendous amount of my time every week to give this output to everybody. And I just want to say thank you everyone that donated. There are some great people out there. And well, if you never donated, I'm not asking you to donate like $200 or anything. I'm just if everybody would donate just a little something, like $1, and there'd be a good number of people that give out $1. It'd be a very small amount for everyone, but it would make a difference for me. So think about it. I don't want to bug you with that, but it's something that helps me a lot. And you're watching the Shortwave show, and we are from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, live on YouTube right now. This is every 2 weeks on Saturdays, 2000 hours UTC, and we talk about radio. We talk about answer questions, viewer questions, and we do our best to try to give information and talk about radio and post radio reviews and do a lot of things. And I want to thank everybody for being here. Great gang today. A really steady stream of 80, 90 person. Really nice. Really cool to see that. Hello there, RadioNet R. Really cool to have you on board, and thank you very much. And I want to keep it up. I'm here to stay. 2017 is really a complex year for me for what I'm doing right now, thinking of what I could do. But one thing for sure is, I'm here to stay. I want to stay here. I want to continue, whether people like it or not. Some people don't like it. I don't care. I don't give a F. Okay, we'll continue, and that's for sure. Cheers, everyone. Continuing. Hey, rechargeable battery. Okay, continuing. This is the first. Okay, I'll answer one question first before I forget. Hey, Nathan Petrovsky, nice to have you on board. First, Jerry says Texan S2000, pretty good radio. Cool. And to answer a few of you that asked that question, including Nathan Petrovsky, another one with a name that I cannot pronounce. Do I plan to purchase a Texan S8800? If it would come to a reasonable price, I think it would be interesting to get one. I would like to. It looks like a really cool radio. Where I am not sure I want to have that is the price. It's rather expensive. 300 euros it's a little expensive. And basically, you know what? It does look cool. It has the same imprint. If you look here at my S350, I think you can see it right now in the. We'll put it in front here. Look at how similar. Okay, let's move this here. And the Texan S8800 looks so similar to this radio here. It has the same, pretty much the same faceplate as the Texan the Ethon S350DL. It's funny because it's like buying a radio that is similar, but it has single sideband. It has some, better circuitry, that's for sure. But you know what? I find it expensive for what it is. And if I do buy it, I'm not sure I'm going to buy it full price. I'll need to have it maybe somewhere. Maybe if it gets on eBay, I think it's something that's going to be a cool radio, but I wouldn't pay the full price, not yet. Maybe it'll get down in price somehow, and it's going to be more reasonable. I do find that it's a little problematic. KC135R, what you need to do to donate is to you need a PayPal account, and you say that you send your donation to the email that I just posted in the chat room. But you need a PayPal account to donate. You can also, for those that don't have a PayPal, there's something called Patreon. If you guys go on, okay, I'll put Patreon also. Maybe some of you want to go there. Radio and computers. Patreon.com, you won't require a account. There you can actually just say you want to give me $1 for every live show I do, or give me an amount every month or something. And Patreon.com is also a great place to give. I've got like 7 or 8 contributors every month through my Patreon account, and that's another place where you can also give. So Patreon.com/radio and computers, and we're gonna stop talking about that because I hate begging for money. It's something I don't like doing. Cheers, everybody, and thank you all for your appreciation. Okay, this little boy is my first ever high-end Texan receiver, the Texan PL600. And this one is I'd say at least 5 to 6 years old. I had bought some cheap Texan receivers before this, but at some point I saw this on eBay. It was about $80 at the time. And that was the cool time when the Canadian dollar actually was worth more than the US dollar, which means when I bought an $80 radio, it was like 72 Canadian dollars, which was nice. And long gone are those days now. Basically, I had a few cheap radios. I was looking at this because I thought it looked like a really cool radio. I saw a few reviews of people saying it was really great. And the funny thing is, a friend of mine that we were hanging out a lot at that time period and loves electronics was looking for a shortwave radio also. And he didn't know what to buy. And I said, well, this one looks pretty good. And I'm actually going to buy one on eBay. And we actually purchased ours the same day on eBay. And I received mine 2 days later than him. Funny thing about the story here is that he got it and had nothing else to pay. I got mine and I had to pay Canadian sales tax to actually get it. So it's just, shows you that it's funny sometimes how things happen. But it was the first receiver that, was a higher end Texan with PLL tuning and everything. This is a general coverage receiver. It came in 2 or 3 colors. I think it was charcoal, black. My friend got the black. I didn't want to have the same color, so I took the silver color. And I remember enjoying this radio a lot. It was one of the first portables I had bought in a long time when I got this, that had single sideband and everything. And it amazed me immediately from the start. It's a great performer. The Texan PL600 is an amazing little radio. The only drawback, 2 drawbacks that I give to this radio, if you put a long wire on this thing, your single sideband reception becomes unstable for some reason. It actually wobbles. Instead of being a very precise single sideband tuning, it's as if the oscillator wobbles. And you hear it in the voice. You hear like the voice is like trembling. And I don't know why, but when you put a long wire, it does that. The other drawback that I have on this, the audio is extremely harsh. It has a good, nice speaker, and it's not the speaker's problem, I can tell you that. The harshness in the audio mostly comes from a bad audio output filtering. But there is a fix. If you have a PL600, find that the audio is a little harsh, go on Google. There are some mods to actually make the audio better on this radio. So PL600, it's a great performer overall. On the telescopic antenna, very sensitive, receives single sideband signals really well. And this was really, honestly, my first higher end receiver. So it has a special place in my heart because of that. It also has, I would guess it's PLL overload. I don't know, but as soon as you put a long wire on this thing, the BFO wobbles and the voice starts trembling. But it is part of what I use regularly. It's one of those receivers I like using regularly, and it has a special place because it's my first real, I call it my real first Texan receiver. Great radio, Texan PL600, amazing little radio, and not too expensive. Also, that's something that was cool. When I saw this, I didn't even know that you could have PLL synthesized with single sideband receiver that was below $100 when I saw this, and I was like, wow, really, below 100. And if you compare just for the fun, here's the PL680 next to it. Look at how similar the box is. They actually use the same casing. Buttons are in the same place or everything. Only difference is that the PL680 has 3 buttons there. Well, this one too, 3 buttons. So it was really the same casing. They've used the same casing. But the PL680 has better sound. And the PL680 has sync detection, synchronous detection that this does not have. So this one does not have sync detection, but the PL680 does. But look at that, similar. You'd think if you didn't look and know better that these are the same radios, just different colors, but they're not. PL600, PL680. That's also a test that I should do. I think I did a few videos, but maybe a few more videos would be interesting to check out. David in Barcelona says that's the first radio that he saw that on my channel. So that's pretty interesting. Yeah. Well, hello there, my friend from Greece. Says it's a few minutes after midnight in Athens, Greece. Sending all my best wishes to you. Keep on your amazing videos. Thank you from SY1AQV. So we'll see you on the bands there. Maybe I'll hear you someday on the international, in the amateur bands for sure. So really amazing and pretty cool. David in Barcelona says, Jill, this is due to design flaw all PL600s have, which makes them overload with any strong AM single sideband signal. Mod is to add a resistor in between the AM, IF, in, and ground on the IC dedicated to RF. Yeah, but you know, still an okay receiver, and I got to say that it's pretty nice when you see that. So let's continue on in our shortwave receivers that we are looking at, and why not go through this one, which is an interesting receiver. And by the way, thank you for all the donations. I do have my phone that's doing a little. My phone's doing a little beep every time PayPal does something. So thanks everyone. Okay. This is a receiver that was sold under the Eton and also the Grundig name. Okay, first of all. So this is something that comes from Eton and Grundig. They both had the name, and basically what you had to do, at first when it was the first model that came out here is the S350. Okay, this one is the S350 DL, which is a little more advanced. They kind of tweaked the tuning. And the DL, which is deluxe version, came with a pair of headphones also in the box. What I like about this and why I bought it first, I like a big radio. You know, it's cool to have these little portable things. You know, like the Texan PL 380. But it's fun to have a really big radio in your hands. Okay, that's one of the things that's really cool about this, is to get a really big radio in your hands. And that is one of the first things that actually brought me to this radio. The fact you have a real nice big radio. Now, this is a AM FM shortwave receiver. It is a analog tuning with frequency counter. That means it drifts, and the DL version is a little better than the S350 version. But you know what? It drifts a little, and it can be even a little annoying sometimes. It has a generally pretty good shortwave coverage in, I believe, 3 bands. Has amazingly good audio because of the very, very cool speaker here. The audio inside this is amazing. You could listen to music on FM easily. You know, good bass response, really good. And you've got, you know, the separate bass and treble controls here, so it also helps a lot. So the Grundig S380 is a great receiver, and but it does drift. It does drift. But man, this radio was nice for that. And at the back, there are some. In the back here, there are some connectors. So there's antenna connectors here on the side. And so that's cool for that. It even has an FM connector for the antenna. And of course, the power connector on the back. It comes with the power adapter, if I remember well. And it also has, and this is a little unique on this radio, it has, right, look at this here. It has right and left audio outs that you can actually use to record if you want. This is very unique for that radio also. Headphone jack and everything. So, nice big radio, good audio, drifts to a point that it's a little annoying sometimes. Sensitivity is good. You know, I mean, it will bring in those shortwave stations. When it came out, it was like $150. And when I got this one, It was a sale at Radio Shack or the Source. I don't remember if it's Radio Shack or the Source, but it came on sale at I believe $69. So it was like at $69. I looked at it and I said, okay, I'm gonna get one for $69. Okay, $160, $150. That was kind of expensive, but at $69, I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. You know, that's pretty cool. So good sound, drifts. It's really an analog radio that has a frequency counter, and great little radio overall, but with flaws that come with it. But you know, I used it a lot because it's fun to have a big radio. I love the big radios, but you know, it's not the best of my collection, that I can tell you. But it's a nice looking radio, and it actually looks like the Texan S8800, by the way. Jay Wanderson 69, hello there. When you get a chance, can you please show the walkie-talkies on the shelf behind you next to the radio, the red radio? Yeah, sure. Here we are. These are the realistic TRC 214 3-watt, 3-channel walkie-talkies that were sold at Radio Shack, I believe, in the around 88, 89. So here it goes. So this is a pair I got on eBay, and you see one of the antennas has a little missing top, but they're a good working order. They actually work very well. They're filled with crystals. I had crystals lying around, so they're filled with crystals, and so they're 3 channels, and these are really, you know, CB walkie-talkies if you want, in the 27 megahertz range. So these were the, you know, the walkie-talkies at the time. I don't know. I think these, yeah, this one has batteries. Here it goes. Let's see if we can hear somebody. Only 3 channel though. Nobody in the 3 channels, which is typical. Not a lot of people on CB these days. So if you guys watch the show, what is it? Stranger Things? That the kids have walkie-talkies. Well, this is exactly what they're using in the show. And somebody actually told me that on eBay they're now selling like for really, really high price, just because they were on the TV show on Netflix. So these are cool. You know, I had a pair similar to these back then. Now, these are not, I did not buy these personally at that time. This is something I have here for maybe a year and a half now. I bought them on eBay because this guy was selling them on eBay with shipping for $30. So when I saw the pair with shipping for $30, and he said they were in good working order, I said, hey, I want to have a pair of those. I want to have a pair of those. And they still work well. I mean, we could use these and, you know, talk on the CB channels. The crystal channels, the crystals I have here are, of course, the default. Channel A is 14. That's the default of every realistic multiple channel walkie-talkies. Channel B is 19. Channel C is 30. So that's pretty much what we have here. And I mean, these were great. If, you know, for somebody that would want to communicate at a fairly okay distance, these are not bad actually. But of course, you know, today with the FRS and GMRS little walkie-talkies, these little walkie-talkies beat these like a hell of a lot. But I like that. You know, it's cool retro. Reminds me when I had a pair of the ones I had when I was young are 1 watt, and I had bought them myself. So they were like similar number, not very far, like TRC 216 or something like that, TRC 211, or I don't know, you know, a number really similar to that. And they were 1 watt, 3 channels, basically. And that's a nice little pair. For $30, I thought, hey, you know what? Why not? $30, shipping included. I'm going to take them. And if you guys want to continue to the CB side, what I have in a more performant CB, portable CB, is this. This is the TRC 234. This is 40 channels, and I believe there's batteries in it. If I turn it on, yeah, here it goes. You can see the channel on it when it's actually turned on right now. So if I move channel up or 9, or if, whoops, not that, here, move the channel, you can see the channel move up. So this is a 40, these are 40 channels, 4-watt walkie-talkies. This is one. I have only one. And the reason I have one, and the antenna is somewhere here, I don't see it, but it's somewhere on top of my my shelf. This thing cost $199 when it came out in the late 80s. And I thought for $200 it was too expensive. And the story behind this one is that Radio Shack had these tables that what they would do is put all the junk that they wanted to really sell, because the junk was basically, they didn't want it anymore. So this thing was on the table at $49. And the reason it was $49 is because the antenna connector here was loose. So you couldn't connect an antenna on it. This is a BNC, by the way. Couldn't connect the antenna. It was just dangling inside. So I opened it and I solidified the antenna input, and now it's really good. And it took me 5 minutes, and I fixed it. And I had for $49 a 40 channel CB. And this I bought somewhere in I'd say maybe 1992, 93. So it's more than 20 years old, pretty sure. And it's a 4-watt 40 channels. So this is cool because it's 40 channels, and it's really nice, to have this here, and it's a part of my collection. For the question of do people still talk on the CB these days? There's not a lot of CBers here. If I tune around, I'll hear a few mobile CBers on channel 10, a few truckers on channel 19 or 20, but what I hear the most on the CB band, when there's a snowstorm, we've got the city with the big snow plows and everything that communicate through VHF and UHF frequencies, but they use private companies that own their own trucks to actually get the snow. So the snowblower will blow the snow inside a truck, and the truck is, of course, owned by private companies. And these private companies, have CB radios inside their trucks. So in the wintertime, the CB band does come a little more alive because it is used to talk together, but mostly also to locate where the snowblowers are in the streets. So in the wintertime, we have a little more activity on the CB bands. But lately, what I'd say, I do go through the CB band from time to time. Lately, what I've been hearing mostly, there's a gang of CBers in sideband that are on 27165, which is, I believe, channel 17, every night. And I've been hearing them for the past few months. They seem to be very regular in talking to each other on the CB, sideband CB channel. But CB is really, really quiet in general. I would say that, you have to listen for a while before you hear anything. It's really, compared to the 80s, I remember when I got my first pair of walkie-talkies, I mean, wow, the CB bands were amazingly full of signals. And, it's really amazing what you could hear back then, and it was full of signals. The other thing that I would hear on the CB is when sporadic E-skip happens. I hear these CBers from the south of the United States on channel 6, 27025. Also 27, I believe 27105 also, or something like that. So, but I got to say that CB is so quiet today compared to what it was in the past. And yeah, CB stands for Citizens Band. And I know that here in Canada, license are not required anymore. Here in Canada, they dropped the license requirement for CB in the mid 80s. Around 1984, 1985, they've removed the requirement for the license. But before 1985, you had to get a license technically to be a CBer. But the problem with CB is that in the 70s, I'm not sure that there were a lot of CBers that actually had a license. I would say that most CBers did not even take the time and bother to get a license. But I would believe that it's pretty much one of those bands abandoned right now that who cares? Who cares? We don't need a license anymore. It was kind of fun, I like the CB side of radio. Grandly, where is my Ernie in the bathtub radio? Oh man, I don't have it, and I really, really wish I could get it. You know what? If I get enough donations, I think that's maybe something I should check for on eBay. My Ernie in the bathtub radio. That was my first ever radio. It was an AM only radio, but man, I remember getting that first radio. Ernie in the bathtub. Oh man, and that's a gift that my sister had. That's for sure. Ethel Welch, you know what? We have frequencies. I've never heard anyone, but Ethel Welch is asking, do you ever hear people that are on film shoots in Montreal talking on walkie-talkie or some sort? I have seen somewhere a list of frequencies and the UHF frequencies used by film crews, because there's a lot of movies that are actually filmed in Montreal. A lot of American, big budget movies are filmed here in Montreal. And I've never thought of trying to listen to. Never thought of trying to listen to in any crew. So I've never heard really, film crews. That's true. David in Barcelona says a lot of hams started on CB. That is so true. A lot of hams did CB way before they did amateur radio. A lot of hams also come from the shortwave world. A lot of hams come from the shortwave world. So, it's amazing. Really amazing. What a little something can do here and get us in a hobby. But yep, a lot of hams actually do come from the CB world. You cannot talk around the world technically on a CB because there are, if you want to stay legal, because that's the question here, okay? We'll talk about two kinds of CBers. And one kind is technically not what I'll call a CBer, and because most people, I will get some hate mail from people saying, hey, you shouldn't talk about those. Look, the default CB, okay, if you want to stay legal, is 4 watts AM, 12 watts single sideband. And for the most part, it's local communications. But there are some that actually use things that are, usually a little more power than usual. They'll use amplifiers. They'll give more power. Now, one thing, if you got a good antenna, I wouldn't be surprised that a 12-watt single sideband signal might actually give you enough pep to propagate far away when propagation is good. But I would say that for the most part, it's local. For the most part, okay. And if you get into CB radio, don't expect to talk around the world. But propagation is surprising, and you never know sometimes. But there are some that actually use more power than the legal limit. And there's also those that are out of band. Like if you, and actually, I gotta say, I was tempted last week. I went somewhere where I did see that there was an out of band transmitter. And I was like, that looks cool, and that would be nice to have. But those out of bands are usually they have more power, they're high powered, and they're either above or below the CB bands, so anywhere from 26 to 28 megahertz. There's the international out of band frequency, calling frequency if you want, which is 27.555 upper sideband. If in days where propagation is actually good enough, if you tune 27.555 upper sideband, you will hear people calling. So that's what we call a calling frequency. So that means you call on 27.555, and then you say, I will be listening on 27.530. So as soon as you call there, 27.555, you move to your call frequency. And if somebody heard you and wants to try to talk to you, they'll go and talk to you on that frequency. But 27.555, if propagation's there and you leave your radio on 27.555 upper sideband, you'll regularly hear people calling CQ trying to get contacts. But that's technically illegal. And if you want to know if 27.555 works, try the CB band on channel 6. 27025, this is channel 6. Channel 6 is really the skip frequency. When propagation is good, you hear tons of American CBers on channel 6. I can tell you that. That's okay. Bobby Beretta. It's cool stuff. It's, some of the stuff that's kind of nice to, I like stuff like that. Okay, what else do we have here? KC135 says, myself, I'm a ham. I'm M6 call sign, yep. Power output 10 watts. Oh, you can. I remember, there's QRP stuff, which are very low powered contacts. And it's amazing how far you can actually go, Mad Radio DXer says, question, what do you think of the prices of second-hand radios? Some of the prices are getting too high. Is it because collectors are pushing the prices up? You know what? I think one of the biggest problems with second-hand radio prices is that there's always this guy on eBay that wants to sell an old radio, and he's going to put, oh, this is vintage and rare and nobody's got one of those or something like that. And he's going to put it to a high price, like, so high that you're going to look at it, you're going to say, wow, I'm not going to buy that, way too expensive. And the biggest problem is too many people are looking at the eBay price and thinking, oh, I really can sell this radio at that price. And because if you ask anybody that sells a radio, a second-hand radio, they almost always come up with, oh, well, have you seen the prices on eBay? But the problem is, yeah, I've seen the prices on eBay, but the answer you could give back is, have you seen anyone sell one on eBay? Because when they're at that price, nobody buys them. But for some reason, it actually artificially gives people think that they can actually put that high price on it. And that is really, really a shame. I mean, I see things, it's crazy. I see ICOM ICR20s go for more than $1,000. But you never see them sold. You just see them asking price $1,000. I mean, I like this. It ain't worth $1,000. And I will never pay $1,000. And if it's secondhand, even worse. For me, a second-hand radio, I'm sorry, is a radio that is inferior in price than the brand new radio. And I do think a lot of people ask way too much for the radios. And the real radio that is really worth its price is, there's not a lot of them. I would say that on eBay, if you look at vintage radios, I wouldn't think that more than about 2 or 3% of all the radios there are real vintage radios. A lot of them are just old junk that is available, very widely available most of the time. It's just that you haven't seen them in your area. So, Yeah, I know, Matt Reed. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's like I'm saying, this thing is $1,000. Now that everybody's saying, hey, this is not available from ICOM anymore. It's like, what the hell are you saying? You're going to sell this $1,000? I'm not buying this for $1,000. And anybody that wants this, don't buy this for $1,000. You are getting ripped off. Okay? It's a great little radio, but it ain't worth $1,000. It really ain't worth $1,000. And talking about that, well, this is the ICOM ICR20. This is a wideband receiver. The reason I bought this, I paid $499 for it. I don't know 5 years ago, or 6 years ago maybe. And the reason I bought this, I had seen many wideband receivers, and when I say wideband, this thing starts at 150 kilohertz in the long wave band and goes all the way up to 3,304 megahertz, 3.3 gigahertz. Okay? So this is a receiver, and this one is uncut, so it receives the full spectrum with no gaps anywhere. It has all modes, AM, FM, upper, lower, sideband, everything, except on the very high frequency range. It doesn't have a sideband, but in a big chunk of its range it does. As multi-mode, it is an interesting performer. It's actually a good receiver. A little drawback, it tends to overload easily, but if you play with it and tweak with it a little bit, you'll be able to compensate for that. And but I didn't have a wideband portable receiver. I had scanner radios, but I didn't have any scanner radios like these. These don't cover shortwave. And I always wanted to have, first of all, a portable, very wideband frequency receiver. I always wanted also a receiver that actually um, can receive the shortwave bands, but also receive in the VHF and the UHF spectrum the single sideband signals. So when I got this, it was like, oh, okay, this does it all. And it had a lot of features. This has a internal recorder. You can record within the radio audio that you're receiving, and all the flexibility of it's a radio that can tune. It has two VFOs, so I can actually tune. If you look here, um, two frequencies at the same time, and I can even scan on one, scan on the other. So I could say here I'm going to scan 145 megahertz up and down. I can say, oh, I'm going to scan 470 megahertz down, and you're scanning both ranges at the same time. So it's amazing because it's like two receivers into one. So all of that flexibility made me choose this one, and I'm happy to have it. It's one of the great ICOM portable receivers. And it's mostly because I didn't have a wideband portable that I bought this, and I'm really happy to own this, and will not depart with it for sure. So it's a great little portable wideband receiver. Extremely happy, and but I would not pay $1,000 for it. I can tell you that. I would not pay $1,000 for it. Okay, how much is my desktop receiver, Theo? Well, my desktop I paid $1,750. It was on sale, brand new, at Radio World in Toronto, Canada, and that's about 5 years ago. But you can have it for less on eBay. I mean, I don't remember who in the chat room said they got it for £300, which was what, 550 Canadian dollars. I love my ICOM ICR 8500, but I gotta say, if I had to buy it on the used market, I would pay below $1,000. That's for sure. A used receiver, I would not pay above $1,000 for my 8500. But it's a great radio. Don't get me wrong. It's a really good radio. That's for sure. So. ICR20, Brett Wayne says the ICR20 is $200 on QTH.com. On eBay, you get it for $1,000. It's like, what the hell? Who's that crazy guy that puts it at $1,000? I can tell you that. Oh yeah, that was a nice one. I checked out the ICOM. What was it? The ICOM ICR 3 or something like that. That had that little TV screen that you could actually watch. You actually watch the like security cameras and stuff like that coming to it, and pretty amazing. Yeah, dual receive, amazing receiver. Hey Philip Briggs, nice to have you on door. Yep, Amfest are some of the best places to get cheap radios. That's for sure. Amfest are really some of the best places. What else do we have here? The FR 500, you mean, Mr. Roman? Maybe. Let's bring out one of the crappiest radios I've ever had in my whole life. So, when I talk about crappy radios, let's talk with a really crappy radio right now. So, okay, can I buy a ham radio to listen but not transmit? Is that legal? Technically, Theo, it's, from what I understand, not illegal to own a transceiver, a ham transceiver. From what I understand, it's not illegal to own a ham transceiver. It's illegal if you use it to transmit and you have no license. That's different. But if you own it, there's no regulations, I believe, that prevent you from owning it. It's just, well, it depends. Here in Canada, I think it's not required. But, most of them will, of course, do. Maybe in the United States it's required, but I believe in Canada it's not. I believe in Canada you can just buy a transceiver. But you can't. You can't transmit. You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to use that. But most ham stores, from what I've seen, want you to show your license before selling you one, which is a very good idea. I think you should not. I'm not sure, but I believe that even a Radio World in Toronto will not require you to show a license to buy a transceiver. But you do require a license if you want to transmit. You're illegal if you're transmitting with it, for sure. But I find not a bad idea if a store just asks you to show your license before selling you one. So, let's talk about one of the crappiest radios I've ever bought, and this is so a shame that it's like, wow. The Ethon FR500 SolarLink emergency radio. This has flashlight, has solar panels, as of course it's a rechargeable thing. It has the crank to charge the battery inside it, has a frequency display, but it's an analog radio with frequency readout. Okay, where we begin is that this is the crappiest shortwave radio I've ever owned. The radio is extremely flimsy. Even the buttons are flimsy. It's like so cheap. And basically, this thing is so bad that, you know what? It's because it's a radio, because I would have put it in the garbage a long time ago. It's AM, FM, and it receives part of the shortwave bands. And you know what? I would be ashamed to sell this if I'd be a company, because it's just so darn bad. And I remember when I actually reviewed this, and I think it's Tom Stiles from the Amrad 88 channel that posted a comment saying, wow, you are so hard with this radio. And you know what? This is the crappiest thing ever. If anyone sees this, the SolarLink FR500 from Ethon, run away. And unless the person gives you the radio, don't even take it. So I can tell you, crappiest thing ever is this really emergency radio. You know what? If you're stuck in your emergency with this, I mean, you're going to really, really be stuck in an emergency. I can tell you that. You know what? You'll be even worse off if you have this than you have nothing. So yes, this is the you know what? I was talking about a cheap portable earlier. Well, this is even worse. I don't think I have something that is as bad as this, especially for what it's supposed to do and help you. I mean, recharge is bad through the solar panel. The crank, okay, it works, but you know what? I mean, you got to crank for 2 hours before you get 15 minutes of something. Shortwave reception is 0. And basically, I think the only thing I can listen to is the weather channels, because it has the weather channels from the NOAA weather in the United States or Environment Canada here in Canada. That's pretty much the only thing I think I can listen to, and FM radio. But that thing is really horrible. So please, Ethan, first of all, never do something like that, because it's like, this hurts your brand. This is horrible. I don't know who designed this, but I'm sure that he lost his job sometime. And it's the SolarLink Ethan FR500, the most horrible radio ever owned. And that's there you go, Mr. Roman. I've said it. I've said it. You see this, you run away. Okay? Run away. Oh man. Okay. What else do we have here? Let me just check. I would put it in the bottom of the trash can, Mr. Roman, just to make sure that nobody wants to go and get it. And talking about that, Danny Shortwave is talking about something. Is the DE13. If you want to have a real emergency radio, a real one that works and does its job, you know what? This thing, Degen DE13. And it's cute, it's green. This radio is actually an amazing little performer. It's sensitive on shortwave. It's analog, so it drifts a little, but it is sensitive on shortwave. It's good for an AM FM radio. Its solar panel is amazing. You know, you leave this an afternoon in the sun, and you'll have a full evening of radio listening with the battery that it recharges. And, you know, if you forgot, you got the hand crank that you can crank the battery. Good shortwave performer. Has a flashlight and a blinking red light. Now, flashlight, useful. Blinking red light, I don't think it's useful, but the flashlight is. And you've got also the possibility on the left side, if you've got enough juice, you can actually plug your smartphone in the USB port here. And you know what? It's going to charge your smartphone. Not a lot, but maybe enough to just, you know, give a little call to 911. And it also has another port here that you can actually plug this into your computer and have it recharge the internal battery. Degen DE13 has good sound, great performance. This, for an emergency radio, is one of the best things I've ever seen. And you know what? It's not expensive at all. So it's really, really a cool radio. Okay? And I can tell you that. Degen DE13, amazing performer. And to go back to the FR500 PLF, the radio in it is so bad that you can't even listen to a shortwave signal. And it doesn't hold a charge. You even put it on the sunlight with the battery, and it doesn't hold a charge on the other one. But the Degen DE13, amazing, amazing performer. Do I have tube radios? Yeah, I've got some here, medium wave, and I've got a shortwave one in the storage, which we'll come to eventually. I'll try to bring it out probably next time. So $25 on Amazon, Danny Shortwave. Well, you know what? It's worth $25. I can tell you that. The Degen DE13 is totally worth $25. You'll have a great radio, something that holds a charge, and you know what? It's a true emergency radio. It can help you in emergencies. It's really a nice little, green radio, but pretty cool, and it is an amazing little radio. Can tell you that. Okay, we're at 3 hours in the show, so we'll maybe take another one or two before we leave, and you know what? We'll have the rest next time, 2 weeks from now. I think it's an interesting enough show that people will like to see the rest of the radios. And no, it's not sunny. It's I've got like a 400 watt spot in my face. I've misplaced the bright light. It's because I've got a light that I use for my live shows. I've got a few spotlights. I've been buying some equipment to make sure that when I do shows, I don't miss out on anything. So I've got like a really bright LED spotlight that's shining here. It's because usually it's not there. It's farther away on that direction. But I took out the power bar and couldn't put it there. And I was afraid of not having enough light to show you guys the stuff that I wanted. So I've got like a really, really bright light in my face. So I look like I'm, in some kind of, sunlight or something. But it is dark here. It's been, the sun sets here at around 5:08. So the sun set about an hour ago here. Granley, is that a Chinese takeout calendar menu? This is my 2016. I should take it out now. It's the 2016 Voice of Vietnam World Service calendar. It was my 2016 calendar from Voice of Vietnam. How about the Super Radio? Okay, let's check out the Super Radio and see what it is. So, okay. This is, oh man, it's all dusty. I haven't taken it out for a while. This is the GE Super Radio 3. So, here we go. Let's check out to show you guys. GE Super Radio 3. As you see, it has a huge speaker, so it really has a huge sound, really amazing sound, with a little tweeter on the upper right corner. This is part of a series of receivers that actually General Electric's made, and it's a part of their receivers that we're calling high performance AM/FM receivers. And the reason they would do these is that these receivers have separately tuned circuits while you're tuning around. So this radio is much more advanced than the cheap AM/FM radios you have today. This is version 3, okay? Super Radio 3. There were 3 of them, of course. The first one became extremely popular with DXers, but because of its tuned circuits, its good selectivity and sensitivity, and it's the fact that it doesn't overload easily, it became a monster DX machine for AM and FM DXers. Then they made the second one, which was good also. They made this one, the third one. It's a good one, but it has a few flaws. First of all, some of them had problems where to get good reception, you had to reverse the terminals on the speaker because they were in the wrong position. The third one also has a flaw here in the analog display. You know what? They're not there anymore, but I remember I put stickers showing me what frequency range we are at because that needle is so off compared to the display. It's just incredible. So it's difficult to know where you are. But if you take that flaw off, okay, the frequency off, if you take the fact that some of them were flawed and you had to reverse the speaker lids, this is one of the best receivers I have for FM and medium wave DX. And I got to say, every time I've DX'd FM signals and actually heard something I never heard before, I always had been using this one. Medium wave is amazingly good also. The sound quality is amazing because of this really big speaker here, so it's really, really cool. And even though I would say this is not the best of all 3 super radios from General Electric, it's still a really good performer. And I'm happy to have this. The reason I got this is this was sold at Canadian Tires, and for a long time they had it for $129, I believe. And I went to Canadian Tires, not even for a radio. I went to Canadian Tires to buy something else, and these were on sale at, I believe, 59. So I looked at it and I said, okay, I've heard a lot about super radios. Everybody says they're great for DXing medium wave and FM. I got to get it. And I bought this one. I'm really happy with it. And you know what? I should actually plug it in and do videos, and maybe do videos showing how this receives FM and medium wave signals compared to other receivers. I did not compare this at any other receiver, so I should. No, there's no shortwave on this. It's AM, FM only. But it's a little bit like the C-Crane. What's the C-Crane High Performance Radio or something? It's the same type of receiver. So, you know, now these don't sell anymore because the problem is these receivers were expensive for AM, FM. And you know what? We're in a market today where people just want to buy cheap radios. And basically, this was selling among DXers like you and me, but they were not selling among the regular people, because regular people don't buy AM FM radios for 80 bucks or $100. They want to buy that cheap $20 radio and wonder why they can't receive their favorite station. But I'm extremely happy with that super radio. This has been part of my radios for at least, I would say this I've bought at least 20-25 years ago. I don't remember. If you guys look at when these radios were made, I bought it. It's at least 20 years old, probably. And you know what? I've listened to this. You know, even I would say for a few years, it was even part of my. It was my kitchen radio for a few years. But most of the time, what I wanted to do is I plugged it in, and I would just try to DX. Now, it has its own inboard power supply, so you see here it has the plug. But to really DX, it's not plugged into the wall outlet you want it. You want to pop in D batteries in here and use it on batteries and really DX medium wave and FM. And you know what? Just talking about it, I feel like tonight taking it out for a spin and trying to DX some FM and AM. Yeah, it does have an 80s feel to it, especially because of the chrome buttons here. This chrome buttons, you know, it's like in the 70s, late 70s, early 90s, when there early 80s, sorry, when there was this fake wood finish on some radios. They would put like a fake wood finish. You know, it dates radios, I can tell you that. And I think the chrome buttons around here and the fact that it's a big radio makes it look more like an 80s radio, basically. Great receiver. If you guys want to DX FM and AM, get one of these super radios from General Electrics. They are amazing performance. Hey, you know what? I never thought about that, Carol. I should bring the GE Super Radio 3 and do some kind of a medium wave and FM DXpedition on Perry Island. That would be a great idea. Thanks, Carol. You know what? I never thought of that. And why not? You know, it doesn't have to be shortwave all the time. So Super Radio 3 from General Electrics. Very dusty, as you see here. I probably haven't plugged it in for more than a year. So that's why it's very dusty. And that's why I'm happy to do this, by the way. Because I'm going to dust off on my radio. Well, not too bad, N5XTC. Scott, by the way, hello there. Because I have my backpack. And you know what? You'd be amazed at everything that I bring along. I even have a fold-up chair sometimes that I bring along. You know, when I do the expeditions and you see that I'm next to the water, is because I brought along my fold-up chair instead of going on the picnic tables. And but you know, it's pretty cool. Nope, I've not. That's something that I would need to have maybe in an upgrade of my scanner radios. I've got no receivers that actually use or decode have code 25, DMR, or anything like that. So, it's pretty cool. So, well, I will not be, well, yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm going to have a bad story here. Lurking in the park at night, well, it's not a good idea because here in Montreal, there's a rule for pretty much every park. And I think Perry Island is in that category. You are not allowed to be in a public park past sunset, except for specific exemptions. But at Perry Island, I believe there's something that says after sunset, you're not supposed to be in the park. And anyways, at Perry Island, I would not want to be there after sunset because there's kind of a lot of things and weird things going on, even in the daytime. You know what? I should do a Perry Island bizarre moment video, because if there's one place where there's there's not just, some of there's not just annoying cops, female cops that, want to annoy you while you're having fun with your radios, but there's a lot of things happening there. And I mean, a lot of things. So sometimes I'm there and I'm like, okay. And the funniest thing is every time I go to Perry Island, I bring my ICOM. And I see all of these people leaving the park because they all think that I'm a cop. And it always makes me laugh. It always makes me laugh. But I can tell you, it's one of those weird things. Yeah, one of those weird things where you don't want to know what's happening in the bushes. Exactly, Scotty Tier 6. You just don't want to know what's happening in the bushes. Okay? And one of the things that I can tell you is that one of my the expeditions that I did 2 years ago, not last year, 2 years ago, a guy came up to me, and I'm not joking, okay? This is a true story. The guy came up to me asking me what I was doing, and I can tell you, he had really short shorts, and his balls were hanging below his shorts. And I looked at him and I said, he asked me, oh, what are you doing? And I looked at him and I said, you realize that your balls are out of your shorts? And he said, oh, really? I'm so sorry. It's like, come on, man. Really? Really? Your balls are hanging out of your shorts, please. So, but I'm the kind of guy that's like, go away and leave me alone. Okay, and don't bother me, because I'm the kind of guy that's easy, but you know what? If you annoy me, you'll know it real fast. So, but that was something. It's like the guy had his balls really hanging from his shorts, and I was like, I could see him coming and approaching, and I was like, oh God, really? Am I really, really, really? Is he going to propose to me something or what? And I just was sitting there on the picnic table with my radios, and like, you realize that your balls are hanging below your shorts. And he looked at me and said, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Come on. You knew your balls were, okay. So that's Perry Islands, okay? Maybe I should make the video and show you guys the balls. Unfortunately, YouTube would not allow it. But it's that thing that you just it's part of, when you're in a big city and you go to a public park and it's isolated a little bit. It's part of the things that you see. I remember 2 or 3 years ago, I went to listen to radio, my shortwave radio, and there's a park here called Parc Maisonneuve, which is a very big park. A little bit like Central Park in New York, and it's a really, really huge park. And I remember I was listening to the radio shortwave, and there's this, really nice girl that she decides to take a sun bath. So she puts her towel and she just, she's there in the sunlight and everything, but she's close to the trees. And I swear, I was listening to the radio and then I heard the girl say, like screaming, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I just looked up and there was a guy behind a tree that was masturbating while looking at her. And it was like, really? People do that? I'm amazed at what people do. I'm amazed that people do that. Like you take it out? Really? In a park? Come on. And I remember he came back and I actually stood up and went to see the girl and I said, "Is this asshole like, really bothering you?" And because now he saw that the guy was coming, so he kind of ran away and never came back. It was like, okay, can we just have fun without nobody annoying us with things like that? Come on. I mean, but, it's like big city, life in a city. Exactly. Like KC3ELE says, life in a big city is that. But man, come on. It's like, please. Okay, you can watch her. Okay, yes, she was beautiful and with big boobs and everything, but you can watch, but what the hell are you doing taking it out? Come on. I don't know. There's always something. Really, really. The sweaty balls guy masturbating. No, I don't want that. I'm listening to at Perry Island, I'm in my little world, okay? I got radios in my face. I got my camera to make YouTube videos. The coolest thing that happened is last summer. I was at Perry Island, and there's 3 girls and a guy that come in the park, and there's nobody around. 3 guys and a girl that come around. They're really young. They're like maybe 20 years old. And they sit at the picnic table, but not very far from where I'm doing my radio stuff. And one of the girls starts looking at what I'm doing, and she notices that I have a really long wire in the trees, So she's kind of intrigued. So she comes up to me and she says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, well, I'm listening to shortwave radio and everything." And explaining to her that, at the moment, what I'm listening to is a station from, I think it's an amateur radio operator that was in South Africa or something. And it's like, well, this amateur station, this guy that you're hearing on the radio is in South Africa, and the wire and everything. And she was like really interested. And it's just so funny because then she looked at me and she said, "Okay, well, we're gonna smoke some weed. You want to join us?" And it's like, "Oh, well, no, okay, it's fine, but it's like," and then she just said, "Well, you're not a cop." I said, No, you can smoke your weed, and I don't care. It's all right. It's all right. I'll actually tell you if the cops come in the park." So it was kind of funny. It was really, really like, what the hell, But exactly, that's really life in a big city. There's millions of people here, so everything happens. Anything can happen, basically. And but that was kind of cool. That was kind of a cool encounter. It's like it's cool. You kids have fun, and who cares? DXing on Pervert Island, almost. Oh, by the way, Grandly, how do you get a calendar? You simply ask. Some stations actually have calendars every year. Usually what I do I didn't do it this year at all, except for the Voice of America, and I still don't have the calendar. But what I often do is in December, I used to write a few stations, tell them how I enjoyed their programs through the year and everything. So it gives them an idea that I'm listening to shortwave to their signal. And I remember telling them, basically, well, do you have a calendar? If you have a calendar, please, I would like to have a calendar. And basically, that's cool, So Just check here if everything is all right. Yeah, okay. Because I'm afraid to lose battery power soon. So, you just ask, do you have a desktop calendar or a calendar you can send me? Some stations have, like Voice of Vietnam had this nice one. I know that I've seen a lot of posts, people having a really nice calendar from KBS World Radio in South Korea. So, you just ask. Do I prefer the countryside? I gotta say, okay, I like the countryside. When I was young, we used to go camp to up north to my father's shack, and it was very, very isolated place up north, and I do like that. But I have to say that I have one thing that is really driving me. I'm a city guy. I'm really a city boy. And I mean, I can see myself going to the countryside from time to time. I can see myself having maybe, a nice house outside of the main city. And I love nature. I love in the summertime, going to a really, really isolated place. It's really cool. I always enjoyed that. But I am a city guy. I really am a city guy, and I love being in the city. I'm the kind of guy that is made to live in a big city. So for sure. So I like nature, but I would be there, I think I'd be bored if I'd only live in the countryside. I need to have, I love the city life. I really love the city life. So, Danny Shortwave Radio DA says, his driver in front of his house in a dead-end street. People, for some reason, like to park here and try to use it as a motel room. That's the thing. When you're a little isolated, people go there for sure and try to. It's just funny. So hey guys, we've been on for 3 hours and 32 minutes, and I'm about probably in the next few minutes to lose battery power. Yes, I do have batteries here, but they're all AAAs, and this is the double A's. This is triple A's. And I gotta say, I'm starting to get hungry and everything. And you know what? Look, we've done a big chunk. This is left. So in 2 weeks, that's what we're gonna do for the rest of the radios. So it's gonna be a second episode of all of my radios. And I'll try to take out some of those tube receivers at the same time. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. We had a very solid, 80 to 90 people watching. This is pretty cool. And I really had a lot of fun. And I got to say that thanks to everybody for being here. I want to say thank you. And I need AAA battery radios around behind me. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll continue radios in 2 weeks, okay? And I want to thank you so much for being here. Thank you for everybody that donated while I was doing the show. Much appreciated. Thanks for everything you do. And you know what? I will do some tests of some radios that maybe I didn't think about. So yeah, I know you guys want me to stay, but I don't have the radio. Don't make it hard for me to leave, okay? I love doing this, and but I've been talking for 3 hours and a half, and it was really fun. And you know what? We'll be back in 2 weeks. So take care. I'm drunk and hungry. I'm not that drunk, but I'm mostly hungry, I gotta say. So in 2 weeks, I'll continue the radios. Yes, I'll be careful in the park. It's not dangerous. You just get a couple of balls from time to time. So take care, everyone. Good night, good day, wherever you are. And I always enjoy having everybody around. Bye, everybody. Thanks for being here.